कितना चल रहा है?
बहुत बढ़िया, ठीक ठाक।
कंफर्टेबल हो? We can take a break if required. मैंने बस इशारा कर दियो
ठीक है,
because अभी बात फिर एडिट भी कर सकते हैं.
yeah.
So ਅਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ we have
ਮੈਂ ਪ੍ਰਭਜੋਤ ਸਿੰਘ। So
ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਨੂੰ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ?
ਅਸੀਂ ਪਿਓ ਪੁੱਤ ਹਾਂ। And it's very interesting when you are interviewed by your own son and one who has seen you through those phases when like ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਜਰਨਲਿਸਟ ਸੀਗਾ, ਕੀ ਕਰਦਾ ਸੀ, ਕੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦਾ ਸੀ, ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਦੀ ਲਾਈਫ ਸੀ, and right from my beginning till now, the only close witnesses, the exact witnesses, the true witnesses are my family members, including you. You have seen me, like how we used to work, how we struggled, and how was journalism at those days when terrorism was at its peak. And you were just school-going children, and then how we moved to Canada, and then those phases. So we have seen journalism at its peak. We have seen journalism at its worst. We have seen journalism changing. So all those changes, you have been with us, with me, going through all those changes.
Yeah. I think we should get into all the we should get into all the details of actually we should get into all the depths of journalism and your career in journalism. And also I think in this podcast ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਚੀਜ਼ discuss ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਕਿ how you got into journalism, your backstory thoda bita.
That's right.
So we want to document the story.
Exactly. Yeah, sure. That'll be interesting.
Yeah. So ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਤਾਂ ਏਦਾਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, actually you should give a little bit of an introduction of who you are actually.
Yeah.
Who is Prabhjot Singh in your own words?
That's right. Basically, I'm from a small town of Ludhiana and brought up in a big family. I wanted to be a doctor. And since I was good in studies, very good in studies, I used to be a merit scholarship holder in middle standard examination those days. The exams used to be conducted by the district education board. And I was at that time, there were no convent schools, no English-speaking schools. So I went to government model middle school. It was called Chulianwala School in Model Town. And that was the only school which had English as starting language. So we used to have 3 languages, English and Punjabi or English and Hindi. So I opted for English and Punjabi. So I studied from class 1 till 8th standard. And in 8th standard, there used to be exam conducted by district education board. And in my school, there was like very clear distinction. Punjabi section was called A section. All our teachers, incidentally, were Punjabi speaking and mostly Sikhs. And then there was B section, which was Hindi section. And so there was a rivalry also, A versus B, always. And there were about 25 students in my class, in our section, and almost 23 or 25 in the same B section. So when the exams were held, middle standard examination were held, so boy from Hindi section, Rajinder Patia, he stood first in the district. I was second in the school, though difference between us was he got 517 marks, I got 484 marks. The difference was primarily because I was a sportsman also. Bhatia, he didn't play any game, though he used to dabble in cricket at times just for leisure. But I used to be in the school hockey team, school football team, school's cricket team, and also into all other extracurricular activities. So I was very happy with my performance, and our section was very happy with us. So at least I got second, and I was 11th in the district. So it was a good showing. So then we all went to the toppers, government model high school, civil lines, Symmetry Road. And it used to be one of the best schools at that time, though uh, it didn't have any playfields of its own. But then the admission was very strict. It used to be on merit. And at times, even a government school, they used to ask for donations, building fund at that time. Since our family was not that well off, my father, your Dadaji, he was bedridden for a long time. He had a paralytic stroke. He had no eyesight. So my mother went with me on the day of admissions. And when they asked for donations, then my mother was like, she was a very strong lady. She said, okay, it means that children who can't afford good fees and donations, they can't get into a good school. So they said, no, it's not like that. But your child is very bright. So we are making an exception. No donation money, no building fund. And he is being admitted. So I was admitted to the school. And again, we got into, there were two sections. Students who are very good in studies, who had good track record. So they all were put in section A. Others, they got in section B. And lots of my friends, even now, they are still my friends, and we are in touch with each other. So they were in section B. And we had very good team of teachers, especially our maths teacher, Mr. H.S. Bedi, Hazur Sharan Bedi. He was very good, very strict. Mrs. Santosh Sood, she was our science, hygiene, physiology teacher. Then Mrs. Sohol, she was our class teacher, very excellent teacher. Then Miss Shobha, she was our social studies teacher. Excellent team of teachers we had. And Mr. Narinder, he was our drawing and at times maths teacher. So, but then I was in, again, as sports was my passion, I was in school's hockey team. So we had a very good hockey team. And we were one of the best in Ludhiana district. And those days, many schools used to play hockey. It's not like this now. There are few teams in a district. No. At that time, each district was divided into zones, sub-zones, and then interzonal tournaments. And then the district final would be held. So those days, our rival in hockey used to be Malwa High School. Some of their players and some of our players played for India later. So that was the standard of hockey at that time. But most of the players in my team, like in my school team, again, they were from arts. I was the only science student who was in the school hockey team. And ultimately, we, in that year, in 1969-70, when we played Malwa School in the final, Gurdesh Pal Singh, who played for India, Baldev Singh, who is now Dronacharya Award winner as a coach, he was in Malwa School. Gurdesh Pal was in our school team. And then Sukhbir Garewal. So all these players, they were in school days, we were playing together. And ultimately, we lost the final to Malwa School by 2-1. And that too because we were basically an urban Shahri school. And they were like Pendu, like they had a huge sport. Those days, school hockey final, more than 3,000 people came to watch our game at Gymkhana ground in Ludhiana. And it was a very close match and good quality of hockey. Ultimately, we lost. That was because we were under pressure and we didn't have much of sport, public sport. They brought so many tractor trailers and so much of crowd sporting them. Ultimately, it was, they were slightly better than us also because they had Baldev, they had a number of other players who later played for different teams, even India. So, but we also were good, very good. And we, in each department of the game, we competed with them. Ultimately, we lost the final. And then back to studies. So we had in 1970, for the first time, Punjab School Education Board conducted the matriculation examination. Earlier, it used to be Punjab University. So 1970 was first year, and we took the exams. Again, same thing happened. Rajinder Bhatia was first in Punjab, all over Punjab. He got 753 marks. And I was second in school with 681 marks. There was a big difference. And I was 111th in Punjab. But again, my time used to go to hockey quite a bit. And I was also, at that time, there was a school magazine, Blossom, in our school. I was a student editor. So Bhatia was only focusing on studies, academics. Anyways, so when we were passing out, the school used to issue us a character certificate. So they would mention what sort of a student you were in your school days. So they wrote so much about me. He was editor, he was player, he was contributor, even in social service, like school social service scheme, was very active. So all those things were mentioned, and then ultimately I wanted to be a doctor. So option was Government College Ludhiana, which was again a big institution. Those days, huge institution and very reputable. And it was very, very difficult to get admission in Government College Ludhiana. But since we were on the merit list and there was no problem, and then I was a hockey player also. So there was a recognition for my school days hockey contribution. So we went there and we got admission easily, no problems. So I opted for science again. And we had such my colleagues, my class fellows, those days, they came from different walks of life, from different schools also. Not only from government model school, like the school from which I came, but they came from other schools also, including Rakesh Bharti. He came from New High School. He was my class fellow, the Airtel guy, Rakesh. So we all were together, and in college, in pre-university, at that time there was no +2. There used to be, after matriculation, pre-university class, then pre-medical class. So we got from pre-university, then pre-medical, and first year there was a notice board, and one day a notice came up that those who want to play hockey should report for trials in the evening. And Government College hockey ground was one of the best, well-maintained hockey fields. And even if you trespass, if you walk through the field, you would be fined. There's so much of strictness. And that was the ground where lots of players who played for India later and earlier, they used to play. One of the best hockey fields at that time. And that was a year also, very important year, because it was 1970. Government College was celebrating its Golden Jubilee, 50 years when we entered. And within a few months of our joining college, there was a huge function to celebrate Golden Jubilee. And some of the greatest names in entertainment, in civil services, in medicine, in education, they came to participate. And the prominent among them was Sahir Ludhianvi, very famous Bollywood writer. He used to write a number of good songs. He and Amrita Preetham, again, a big name in Punjabi poetry. So they were class fellows. They were there. Then number of people like Punjab Chief Secretary, Mr. I.C. Puri, Punjab's DGP, KPS Gill, you name them, and they were all there. Lots of them. And even Mr. Jahangir Khan, he was one of the principals before partition, and then he moved to Pakistan, and his son played for Pakistan, and he captained Pakistan cricket team. So guys like those who even were in Pakistan, they came to join the celebrations. So there were 3-day celebrations, and we were party to that. We witnessed that first year, and we were so lucky. College was celebrating, and we came across such big personalities. We listened to them. They were different functions. There was a mushaira, all sorts of functions, then lectures, then seminars, exhibitions. All those things happened, and we were so lucky. We thought we got into college at the right time. So, anyways, that was a year we started in the college, and in a very, very festive mood. And college, as it was, very well known. So, first year pre-medical, pre-university, we cleared. Then we got into pre-medical, and pre-medical again. We had a very good team of teachers in chemistry, in zoology, in botany, and physics. So, because those were my subjects, and then I had Punjabi as my optional subject, because you have to have one optional subject those days. So I opted for Punjabi, because otherwise there were option to take NCC. But since I was a hockey player, I was spending my time on the ground every day after the classes. So I didn't take. I take Punjabi, and I was good in Punjabi, because even in matriculation I got very good marks in Punjabi. So pre-medical we cleared, but somehow I couldn't get into medical college on the basis of pre-medical. So I opted for BSc. And BSc, again, same thing. I was like very active in college. I was president of Zoology Society. I was also member secretary of Chemical Society, Botanical Society, and I was also science editor of the school college magazine called the Satluj. So BSc, when we were about to finish our studies, and there was a farewell party that day, and I had come to the college for the farewell party, and I used to have a bicycle. So after the party, there was a good photograph. When I went home, there was a big crowd outside our house. I was surprised what's happened. And those days there were no telephones or nothing. And when I reached home, I learned my dad is no more. And a day later, my BSc final exams were to start. So my father died on 7th of March, 1974. And 8th or 9th was my first practical, organic chemistry. I couldn't take that because cremation and other things. So I missed that practical. And ultimately, on those days, during those years, if you had 60% marks in BSc, you would get entry into medical college straight away. And since I was a sportsman, and that year, 1974, was the first time in the history of the college, in 54 years, the college won Punjab University Inter-College Hockey Championship. And I was a playing member of the college hockey team. So even if I had gone for sports quota, I could have got into medical college. But somehow it didn't occur to me that I should use my sports ability certificate to get into medical college. But I thought maybe nature doesn't want me to be a doctor, because that's why the death of my father just happened on the eve of my exams. So somehow I decided I will not study science anymore. Though I got an admission in Punjab University, MSc Botany Honours, MSc Zoology also. But I was I thought, why I should continue studying science when pre-medical I couldn't get into medical college. After BSc, I couldn't get into medical college. So there was a demand for a player, Lailpur Khalsa College, Jalandhar. So they wanted one good player, a halfback. I used to play right half. So they wanted one good player in their hockey team. So I applied for admission in MA Political Science. Since I came from English background, I schooling and college all in English medium. And that was the year when Guru Nanak Dev University made English as compulsory subject for postgraduate classes. So when I went there, I joined the college, and the teachers were very impressed by like whatever I would say in the class. I would get up. Because general knowledge, basically, I used to stand up. United Nations, they would ask. I said, yeah, this is what United Nations is all about, political systems. So because since I used to read newspapers quite a bit, so they were very impressed. They gave me all concessions: free hostel, no tuition fees, stipend, and hockey for hockey. So they said, you are our star. You will top the university. So whenever, like initially 3 months I was there, whenever there were monthly tests, I would top 8 out of 10 every test, 9 out of 10 every test. So all my class fellows would look towards me, anything for any help, any guidance, any clarification. Prabhjot, yeah, you just tell me this. What is this? This explain this. So I used to shuttle. Though I had a room in the hostel, but I used to shuttle between Jalandhar and Ludhiana by train every day. I would go and then walk from Jalandhar Kent railway station to Lalpur Khalsa College, which was about 4 or 5 kilometers. I would just walk. Sometime there was a class fellow of mine. He used to come on a bicycle. On way, he would stop and ask me, no, you come with me on my bicycle. So he will offer me a free ride. So that was very kind of him. He became a good friend. But then Punjabi University Patiala, late in, I think September or October, they announced they are starting journalism classes. I was happy. I thought I will join journalism. So I applied and they said, okay, send your credentials, certificates. So I went to my college. I said, please give me my certificates back. I want to apply for admission there. They said, no, we are not going to give you your certificates. You are our star. You are going to top the university. We have given you all the concessions. You can't leave us like this. You are a member of the hockey team. You are going to be like bringing honors to the college. I said, no, but I have no interest in political science. I want to be a journalist. So they refused. So I got all my certificates, duplicate certificates, and I gave it to Punjab University. And I was like given admission as the baby of the first group. I was the youngest. I was just 20. And all my class fellows, somebody was MA, MPhil, somebody was doing PhD and 2 MAs, somebody had done this. So, but I was like a raw student, just BSc and first time in postgraduate courses. And I got a room in the hostel and then, but in class again, like because I used to read a newspaper regularly since like I was in 6th standard, I used to go long way to get my copy of the Tribune. I will catch my hawker about 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers from my home up to the bus stand, Model Town to bus stand. You have seen the bus stand in Ludhiana. I would walk up to there and then he would be coming from Clock Tower on his bicycle. Tarlok Chand used to be our hawker. So I would say, Bauji akhbar. So he would say, tu athe tak aa gaya. You would reach there another hour. And by the time I reach home, I would have read the paper because at home, there so many people are waiting for the paper. So I will finish reading my paper before I reach home. So that paper is available to others to read. So he used to be like very happy to see me every morning, and I'll take paper from him, walk back on the way reading the paper, especially front page, page 3 and sports page. Those were my favorite pages. I would read, and by the time I reach home, so I would give it to paper, elder brother or others who want to read. So that was the habit. And in 10th onwards, I had a good friend in Ravi Gupta. I used to treat him like my brother. So he came from a rich family. He would see me. Like when I was in junior model school, I would take my father. Since he had no eyesight, I would hold his hand and take him to the Gurdwara in Model Town, Gurdwara Shahida, every evening. So he would watch me. He was in Hindi section. He didn't know me. So one day he asked me, Prabhjot, who's that old man I see you every evening taking him to Gurdwara? I said, he's my father. He says, why? You take him like this? I said, he has no eyesight. So he became very warm and friendly, and we became very good friends. So when we went to school, high school, so Ravi also, but he opted for commerce. He didn't go for science. He wanted to do chartered accountant, so he wanted to do B-commerce. In college also, he went with us, but he went for B-com. So those were the days. So like this, and he said, that's very different. I have never seen somebody like this. And you come to the school, you take him to the Gurdwara, and how much time it takes? I said about 1.5 hours, because 15, 20 minutes is going one way, coming back. Then he would sit there for half an hour. And then I would bring him back home, and then I would come and sometime play and sometime. And even before that, before taking him to Gurdwara, I would recite Sukhmani Sahib to him, which used to take almost more than an hour and 10 minutes. I would recite entire Sukhmani Sahib to him. And then I would do my homework, and in the evening, I'll take him to the Gurdwara. So he said, you do all this? I said, yes, I have to do all this. And so he was very impressed. He says, then how much time you get for your homework? And you are a topper always. You are doing so well in study. You also play hockey. You also play cricket. I said, that's God's gift to me. And anyway, so then we had a small group of friends, and we formed a club also. It was a martial cricket club, and we started playing cricket. And then journalism, since it was in my blood, so I would maintain the club records, everything. And then when after finishing my BSc, I got into journalism. I got into journalism classes. So one day I just decided to go to Jalandhar. I took a bus. I went to Jalandhar, and I went to Ajit newspaper's office. It was the biggest Punjabi newspaper at that time. So I went there, and one of my elder sisters, Jagdish Panji, and they had a friend, Mr. Bhuta Singh Gill. He had joined Ajit as general manager. He was very close to my Jijaji, Sai Kabal Singh. So he had given me his reference, that when you go to meet Mr. Bhuta Singh, give my reference to him. So I went, I met Mr. Bhuta Singh, and he said, why you are here? I said, I just want to talk to Mr. Sadhu Singh Hamdard. He says, why? I said, I want to write for Ajit. He says, what are you doing these days? I said, I'm doing my journalism classes. He said, that's a very good idea. I'll take you to him. So he took me and he introduced me to Sadhu Singh Hamdard. And then Sadhu Singh Hamdard was a great journalist, old man, and he said, what do you want to write for us? I said, sports. Oh, sports. Who will read sports in Punjabi paper? I said, no, you have to start. There is a readership. I know for certain. He says, no, Prabhjot, nobody will read sports in Ajit or thing like this. I said, okay, give me a chance. Let me start. And if people like it, then we'll continue. Otherwise, there is always, you can say no. We can always discontinue anytime. He says, no, but I don't have people who will edit your copy, where we will place your copy. We may have space problems. We have this. I said, if you want to start, then these are no problems. But if you don't want to start, then you can make all these. He says, I like your approach. Yes, you are very convincing. Okay, you start. But promise me, you will have to write the entire page. I'll give you a page a week. Will you write? I said, yes. Are you sure you will meet a deadline every week? You are a student also. I said, yes, I will meet your deadline. How will you send your stories? I said, I'll send you by bus. I write them, put them in an envelope. I send them as your doc comes. So it will come with your doc every day. Uh, he says, okay, we will start Thursday. I said, okay. So I'm the first one to start sports page in Punjabi or vernacular newspapers of Jalandhar. So when I started sending on Tuesday. So it will reach on Tuesday evening, and Wednesday they will edit. And Thursday, full page would come, sports, Khed, Khidari, Ank. I was excited. All my class fellows were excited. Oh, Prabhjot has started writing for a newspaper and this and this. And since I was a sportsman, I had like lots of contacts in sports associations, players, they knew me very well. So my stories started creating sensation. I would write inside, like what's happening in sports, like why NIS is producing more coaches and less players, things like this. So that was a hit. And then in the journalism department, we had a teacher. He used to come and teach us, Mr. Sher Singh Gupta. He was Tribune's reporter those days in Patiala. He was general reporter. So I asked him one day, I said, sir, can I come and do the local sports reporting for you? He said, yes, why not? Why not, Prabhjot? Why not? So I went to his house. He used to live in Patiala, and I was in the hostel. I would take a bus that used to go from the university campus to the bus stand, and then I would walk to his place about 2 kilometers. So local events, whatever local events, I would write, type, and show it to him, and he would just sign. He said, yes, very well written. Go to telegram office. Send this telegram. So then my stories started appearing under Sher Singh Gupta's name in the Tribune as sports stories. And he was very happy with me. And one thing I liked and I learned from him was Sher Singh Gupta would always say, if you are to be a journalist, you must write, and write. Don't worry about rejection. Just keep on writing. And that was one good lesson from him, great lesson from him. I would study newspapers, other newspapers. I would take notes, how they are reporting, how they are doing. So I would try, my copy should be clean. It should not be rejected at all. So small stories, bigger stories, 2 paras, 3 paras, then 200 words, then 500 words. And those were the days you had to type your copy in a telegraphic language. Means you have to count your words. You will type your copy in lowercase only. And then you will mark 250 means para, 250 words para, 250 words after 500 words para, then page, full page. So then you will write at the end of the message either 30 or EOM, end of message. And then when you send the telegram, you will write BGQ, it means ordinary telegram. When you write at the top BGXQ, it means express telegram. So when you write BGU double XQ, it means urgent. So that telegram will go first. So those were the days when we had typewriters and telegrams, and at times I had no access to typewriter. So then I would write the entire story on paper and by hand, in my own hand, and I would just count the words and send the telegram. After Mr. Sher Singh Gupta would sign it, I would go telegram office and give it to them, and they will send it. And it would appear next day. So then when our journalism course was about to end, so we were asked to opt where we want our internship or training. I said, I want to go to the Tribune. And since I passed out of journalism course, I got again second in the university because somebody was very influential and he got the first position, I got second position. And I came back to Government College Ludhiana. I joined MA English. I had finished journalism and now my training was to be held. So then there was a problem. However, I would go to Chandigarh every day and come back, or where I would stay. And since I had taken admission in MA English in Government College, Ludhiana, so I said, no problems. I would go after classes. Classes would end around 11, sometime 12. I would take a bus around 1:30, reach Chandigarh at 2:30, 3:30. And at the bus stand, I had put my bicycle, take the bicycle from Sector 17 bus stand, go to the Tribune, work there for 2 hours. Training period was 2 hours. 5:30, I'll come back to the bus stand, take a bus. By 8 o'clock, I'll be home, Ludhiana. So that used to be my routine 5 days a week. Saturday, Sunday was no training. So every Monday to Friday, I would go like this. And then I finished my training, and I was writing for, then by that time, other papers in Jalandhar. They were after me. You should write for us. Ajit is doing very well. In between, after I started, after a couple of months, I got a phone call from Sadhu Singh Hamdard. So I was not there because those days there were no cell phones or nothing. And I got a message that he's trying to reach you and he can't reach you. So I was in the hostel. So I got a message through Ajit correspondent in Patiala that Sadhu Singh Hamdard want to talk to you. So I went there and I called him. He says, Prabhjot, your page is doing very well. Now we are making it on Wednesday. And we are also starting publishing sports news every day. So other than weekly page, you will also write sports news. I said, sir, fine, I will, because I'm writing for Mr. Sher Singh Gupta also. So I'll send a copy to you. But that copy will reach you a day late because I send it only by bus. He said, yes, I can't give you telegraphic authority, but yes, you send it by bus. So I started then for Ajit's sports page also. And when I finished my training with Tribune, and Mr. KG Dutt was appointed staff reporter at Ludhiana. So people in the Tribune said, okay, you come every day, it's a long. Why don't you train with our staffer at Ludhiana, Mr. KG Dutt? He is just posted there and he'll be helpful. I said, okay. So after a month or 6 weeks, they said, you now start working with KG Dutt. And those days, there were some very important tournaments being held in Ludhiana, like North Zone table tennis. Then there was badminton tournament. So I met Mr. KG Dutt. He said, yes, Prabhjot, I have no knowledge of sports. You write, you cover, I'll just sign it, and you send telegrams so that my attendance is marked. And make sure nothing objectionable, no problems, don't create problems for me, but you write. You write on my behalf. I said, I have been writing for Mr. Sher Singh Gupta as well, so I have experience in writing for the Tribune. He says, yes, very good, very good. And Mr. Varyam Singh Dotia was DPR of Ludhiana. So he was very nice to me. He and Mr. Dutt were good friends. So Mr. Dotia also extended all help to me. So I started writing for the Tribune from Ludhiana again, as Mr. Dutt would also like come every morning from Chandigarh and go back in the evening. In his absence, if anything happened, he would call me, Prabhjot, dekh li koi khabar. So I would, in his absence, I would depute for him and send those stories. So he was very happy with me. And, but that training was only for a few more months. I think instead of 2 months, they extended my case because I was doing well. So they said, why don't you continue for another month, Prabhjot? I said, okay, it's good for me, good practice and good learning experience. So I continued 3 months. After 3 months, I had to get my certificate and give it to the university. I have to discontinue. So then one afternoon, when I came home, my brother, elder brother, Baby Veerji, he said, there's a big surprise for you. I said, surprise? What sort of surprise? You can't imagine, he said. I said, what? He says, no, it's a big surprise, very pleasant surprise for you. You guess, make a guess. I tried and guess, but nothing. He said, no, not this, not. It's something very big, very. that can change your lifestyle, that can change your this. I said, what is this? He didn't tell me for a while, and then he kept on teasing me for 15, 20 minutes. Then ultimately said, here is a letter from the Tribune offering you a job. I said, Tribune is offering me a job? He said, yes, this is the letter. And the letter came from the Tribune. We need a sports reporter at Ludhiana. Just 2 lines. Will you take up this assignment? And instead of my address, 436R Model Town, where we used to live, and that's our house, the address was wrongly written. It was Prabhjot Singh, 144 Model Town, Ludhiana. And since all the postmen knew me very well, at those days, I used to get lots of pen friends. I used to get lot of mail. So Malkeet Singh was the postman. He said, "Nee, the Prabhjot di chithi hai." So he delivered at our place. And I immediately wrote back. I was excited. Yes. I said, okay, tell me what are terms and conditions of my working. And since I'm a student, I'm studying at Government College, Ludhiana. So the reply came third day, 7th of August. You are appointed sports reporter at Ludhiana. You will be paid column rate, and we are sending you telegraphic authority. So please start filing your reports. I said, huh? So since I was working, I knew how to write for the Tribune. So I started filing reports. So I'm the one guy who never applied for a job, but job was offered to me. So that was very exciting for me. I took up at that time, the Tribune was the first newspaper those days to start the institution of sports reporters. Because traditionally, Indian newspapers, they don't have sports reporters. People who work on the desk, sports desk, they would come and report in the field. So there was no need for sports reporters. But Tribune decided Samuel Banerjee was a man. He's my mentor. He was my coach, my trainer. When I was training with the Tribune, I used to interact with him. He at that time he was impressed by my work because I'd been writing for Sher Singh Gupta. He knew it. I am writing the copy. And then when KG Dutt was reporting from Ludhiana, I was writing his sports copy. So Mr. Samuel Banerjee knew me very well. He is Prabhjot is doing all this work. So it was Samuel Banerjee who said, okay, we want to have 4 sports reporters. Kamar Sandhu in Chandigarh, Avinash Singh in Patiala, and Prabhjot Singh in Ludhiana. So we were the first 3. We joined the same day in August 1976. Our career started the same day as sports reporter in the Tribune. So I was doing my MA, I was studying, and I used to report, and they were all major sporting events. Sam would send me, okay, Prabhjot, football championship at Malerkotla, go and cover. Hola Mohalla Sports, Anandpur Sahib, go and report. Kila Raipur Sports, go and report. Any major event in Punjab. So Sam would ask me and I would go there and report. And then we had another reporter at Jalandhar, Harbans Virdi. So we were 4. But again, like my copy used to be like, I used to occupy the maximum space on the sports page. I used to write so much because in Ludhiana, there were so many people who were either associated with sports associations or were themselves great players of their times, like Prithipal Singh. Prithipal Singh, he was Olympian, top goal scorer, penalty king he was called. He was director of student welfare, Punjab Agriculture University. And he was also national selector and great player. He was a great source of information. All India inter-university news, hockey news, other university campus news. So I would very close to him, and he used to call me every day, and I would get couple of stories from him, good stories from him. So like that, then Mr. Jawahar, he was secretary badminton. Then Mr. Rajkumar, he was secretary volleyball. Then Paji Teja Singh, he was with basketball and handball. Then all those guys, hockey people, Mr. Randhawa, all those guys, they were very close to me. And then football, it was in Fagwara, Mr. K. Kapoor, He was secretary. Then Mr. Minhas, he used to be the one who handling media. So all were very friendly with me, and from everywhere. Even Mr. H.R. Mola, he was Jalandhar-based man. He was secretary Punjab Cricket Association. He would travel all the way to Ludhiana to release stories to me, and at times Mr. Virdi would get upset. Okay, why he's giving reports to Ludhiana man, not to me. He even complained against me. But then they said, office said, कि if they have confidence in that report or they give it, this is their choice. They want to share information with people they trust. So you build your trust with him. Instead of complaining, build your trust with him. So those were the days like this. So I have become like very popular in Punjab sports as a man. And in the meanwhile, I also got an opportunity to work for Hindustan Times. Hindustan Times started a tabloid called the Morning Echo. It used to be like a tabloid highlighting crime, sports, and entertainment stories. So I was covering entire Punjab for them. Though there was not many people would see the paper because it doesn't come to Punjab at that time. But my stories would appear in the Morning Echo, and some papers in Jalandhar would then translate those stories and publish in Punjab Kesari, in Ajit, quoting Morning Echo. So my stories were indirectly published in Punjab papers those days. So I was working for Morning Echo from 76 onwards for a couple of years. And then in the meanwhile, because since I was covering sports, all major sports magazines in India, Sports Star of Hindu, they asked me to write for them. Sports Week used to be a magazine from Bombay. They asked me to write for them, cover all major events. Then Sports World used to be the Telegraph group of newspapers, sports magazine. So they asked me to write for them. Then Sports Sign from Bangalore. So they also asked me to write. So I was like in Punjab, I was representing all major sports publications. Besides working for the Tribune and writing for all vernacular newspapers, I started my own syndicated news service, Sports and Feature Alliance. So I would write, and same feature would appear in all papers. So, but my only condition was I will not write free. You have to pay me. So that was my golden principle. Normally people would say, Jalandhar paper don't pay. I said, no, I don't write free. If they pay me, only then I will write. And this is how it's worked. And they all wanted me to write for them. I used to write for them. And it started like that. And then I was representing almost all papers. And then one day I got a call from All India Radio, Jalandhar. He says, we hear you are writing on sports. You cover all major sports events. So we have a Yuvani program. Why don't you come and do a weekly program on sports? Jalandhar station of All India Radio. So I said, why not? It's a great opportunity. I will. So I started a weekly program on All India Radio Jalandhar. Initially, I would prepare a script and go and speak it out. And then by the time, after a few weeks, I was so confident, I would just go and speak extempo, 12 minutes, 15 minutes on sports roundup or sports politics or whatever other issues in the world of sports. So that column, that weekly program on All India Radio, I used to get about 64 rupees per appearance on radio. That included 24 rupees for my bus travel from Ludhiana to Jalandhar and 40 rupees my fees for radio. At that time, it was big money. And at those days, while I was still a student, MA English, I used to make about 2,000 rupees, including money from the Tribune, money from Jalandhar papers, money from sports magazines, and money from radio, all put together. And then I was always free. I was playing my hockey and then enjoying my game, staying home, attending my classes, still making a lot of money. And Then after MA English, I decided to join Punjab Agriculture University for my master's in journalism. So I got admission there. I did my MSc. And in the meanwhile, since I was already people knew me as Tribune's reporter, so I was covering sports. So then MSc, since I had already done journalism, Bachelor of Journalism, so I was given some exemptions from some courses which I had already done as part of my Bachelor of Journalism course. So I finished my MSc on 23rd of October 1979. And same day, almost same day or a day earlier, I got a call from Samuel Banerjee. Prabhjot, would you like to come to Chandigarh as a staff reporter? I said, why not, sir? Who doesn't want to be a staff reporter of the Tribune? Because those days, not many Sikhs would be employed by newspapers, mainstream newspapers, especially English newspapers, as staff reporters. I said, why not, sir? He says, then get ready, send your application. I said, okay, sir, I will. And those days, a team from Soviet Union, at that time it was Soviet Union, not Russia, it was visiting India, playing hockey matches. It played in Ludhiana, and next day it was playing in Firozpur. So I said, okay, sir, I'll send my application. Next day I went to Firozpur to cover the match. I came back from Firozpur, and in Ludhiana office, there was a teleprinter. I used to operate myself, teleprinter. And then came the call from Mr. Banerjee. Prabhjot, where is your application? Sir, I am just come back from Firozpur after covering the match. So I'll just send you the match report, then I'll file my application. He said, no, forget about the match report. Send your application first, because Mr. Prem Bhatia is waiting to see your application, because you are to be here day after for the interview. Trust is meeting and you have to appear before the trust. First, send your application. So then I sat on the teleprinter. I filed my application. Okay, please, I'm interested in becoming a staff reporter at Chandigarh. And I have done MSc, I've done MA, I've done journalism, all this, and I've been working and this, all those things I wrote. And then he said, okay, now it's fine, the application is fine. So day after, by 10 o'clock in the morning, you should be in Chandigarh, the Tribune office, for your interview. I said, fine, I'll be there. So I then filed my match report. And then a day after, on 23rd or 25th, I was in Chandigarh. So I was sitting at the reception. Mr. Prem Bhatia, he didn't know me. So he said, you are Prabhjot? I said, yes, sir. Come with me. So he took me to the first floor of the Tribune office building. He said, here, we'll call you for your interview. I said, okay. So all the 5 trustees, General Gyani, Dr. P.N. Chutani, Dr. M.S. Randhawa, Justice Mahajan, they were sitting there, and I was ushered in. So he said, you are Prabhjot? I said, yes, sir. So Dr. Chutani said, how much you know about sports? I said, sir, I have been basically a sportsman, and I've been covering sports. I know most of the sports. So he said, do you know about the 75 World Cup team? I said, yes, sir. What do you know about? I said, you are as director of PGI. You had made available services of Dr. Rajinder Kalra as medical officer, and it was attached with the team. And the hockey team's total medical care was taken care of by PGI. And that's why the team did very well, because they had no health or medical issues. He said, you know that? I said, yes, sir. Of course, I used to come there as a part of my thesis for my journalism. I wrote about hockey teams' preparation for World Cup. And then Dr. Dawa, how much you know about agriculture? I said, I know everything about agriculture. How much is the yield of wheat? So which are the areas? What sort of crops we grow in Punjab? So I answered all those questions. He says, how soon you can join? I said, I can join tomorrow. I'm a free bird. He said, okay, you join by 1st of November. How much you want? I said, sir, keeping in view my experience and my qualifications, so whatever you think is all right. He said, okay, you just wait, we'll decide. So I was asked to sit outside, and then I came out, I sat, I was waiting, and then Mr. Prem Bhatia said, Prabhjot, just wait for a couple of hours more. You take your appointment letter, and then you can join as soon as possible. I said, okay, sir. And by 2 o'clock, they gave me my appointment letter. You are appointed staff reporter at Chandigarh and join as soon as possible. So 30th October, after a week, since I had no accommodation in Chandigarh, I didn't know anybody in Chandigarh except for Mr. Samuel Banerjee. So I had to live there. I have to move there. First time from in the family, somebody had to move out for a job. So I had a scooter at that time, Vespa scooter. So I decided to come on my scooter to Chandigarh. And I asked Gurdish Pal, since he was in Chandigarh, he was living in Chandigarh. I said, I need accommodation. He said, no problems. Mamiji's house is vacant in Sector 21. You go and live. There is a 2 canal house, totally empty. Take whatever, how much you want, take that. I said, I need only a room and attached bath. Rest, I don't need anything else. He said, no, as long as you want, you can live there. They are in Calcutta. Nobody is living there. Only a servant is there, caretaker. He lives at the servant quarter at the back of the house. So you don't have to worry. So it was a great offer. So I took that offer and I moved in on a scooter and I bought a folding bed, a heater, a 2-in-1, and a bedding. That's all. I came and started living there in that room. I would make tea on the heater, that's all. Or boil eggs, that's all. And I would come back around 2 in the morning, 1 in the morning, and go whole day, move around the city, visit different police stations, different PGI. My initial beat was police, crime, and sports, plus health, PGI. So my beat used to be I would visit all police stations every day, visit police headquarters, visit Punjab University, sports people, other people, registrar office, VC office, PGI director's office, and try to make some friends among doctors. So I used to be very busy whole day and come back in the evening, write my reports, sit in the office, wait till late at night, check with police, check with the fire brigade, check with control room, any up to date till midnight, any crime in hospitals, emergency rooms, everywhere I would check. Then go back home at 1, 2 in the morning. So this is how then I got into journalism in a big way. But one day I went to Mr. Bhatia. I said, sir, thank you very much for making me staffer, but I am a big loser. He said, what way you are a loser? I said, I used to make $2,000 as a student at home. Now you have fixed my salary at 1,000 rupees, 432 as basic. He says, Prabhjot, you don't realize you are a staffer now. There is a difference between a stringer and a staffer. You are a full-time journalist. And see how much respect you get wherever you go, and see the growth you will have as a staffer. Not many people can become staffers. And he was right. He says, only Tribune has staff reporters. Other newspapers have only stringers. So you are among very, very few who are staff reporters. And you have a very important beat. So I was very impressed by what he said and the way he used to encourage us. He said he would support us. Whatever story you would do, we would stand by you. He would support you. He said, yes, professionally, if you do anything, I'll support you. But you should not misuse your profession. So his watchwords were, be credible. Credibility is the only thing for which a journalist is known. If your reports are right, don't worry. People may threaten you. Governments may threaten you. Don't worry. I am with you. I'll stand by you, but your report should be factual, should be very objective. No personal comments, no grouses. You should stay ethical. That's my only principle. And that was right in a way. And that was the beginning. So this is how I got into journalism.
Wow. ਸੋ ਇਹਦੇ ਚ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨੇ ਦੋ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ अर्ਲੀ ਲਾਈਫ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੜੀ ਕੰਸਿਸਟੈਂਟ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ. ਪਹਿਲੀ ਗੱਲ ਤਾਂ ਦਿਸ ਵਾਜ਼ ਐਨ ਅਮੇਜ਼ਿੰਗ ਸਟੋਰੀ. I think you talked about so many different things. ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਇੱਕ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਾਰੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ unpack ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ. But the two things that were consistent throughout your early days was one, that you were always a sports person. ਤੁਸੀਂ hockey ਖੇਡਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ. ਤੇ ਦੂਜੀ ਚੀਜ਼, even though you were studying science and medical and you had those subjects, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ you were part of the school publication and you were always writing. So I think what I want to know first is, and this is ਇੱਕ ਚੀਜ਼ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਾਫੀ ਦੇਰ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਕਹੀ ਸੀਗੀ ਹੁਣੇ in the when you were speaking, ਕਿ journalism was always in your blood. So what I'm actually curious about is that if journalism was always in your blood and you were always writing for the school newspaper, what actually drew you to being a doctor and getting into the medical space?
You see, yes, journalism in the sense like I was very fond of cricket in my school days. And playing, of course, hockey we used to play, cricket we used to play quite a lot. And those days, cricket matches used to be only in winter, test matches. So I would, as I told you, like Ravi used to be a good friend. And one thing I failed to mention was Ravi had a scooter those days. It was like very rare at 16 or 17, you get a scooter from family, Vespa scooter. So every evening I would ask him, Ravi, let's go. I want to buy newspapers. We would go from Model Town to Clock Tower, about 4 kilometers away, to buy city editions of all newspapers. So city edition means papers published from Delhi, which would come late. Early morning, you would get dark edition, which means old stories. But latest stories, you would get in city editions. So every evening, I would go and buy newspapers. Sometimes Ravi would get upset. He said, why, Prabhjot, yaar, you have to go that way and you spend so much money on newspapers, almost ₹1 a day. 20 ਪੈਸੇ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਪੇਪਰ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ, 20 ਪੈਸੇ ਦਾ, 18 ਪੈਸੇ ਦਾ. ਤੇ 4-5 ਮੈਂ ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨ ਟਾਈਮਸ ਆਫ ਇੰਡੀਆ, ਸਟੇਟਸਮੈਨ ਇਹ ਖਰੀਦ ਕੇ ਲਿਆਂਦਾ ਸੀ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਨੂੰ. ਈਵਨਿੰਗ ਨਿਊਜ਼ਪੇਪਰਸ, ਸਿਟੀ ਐਡੀਸ਼ਨਸ. ਐਂਡ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ we would have special clips of cricket pictures, cricket scoreboard. I would, on days when cricket matches are on, I would even also prepare my own score sheet, write results like who scored, how many runs, which bowler has given so many runs in 1 over, thing like this. So cricket was that way my passion, recording history. And I would also buy the Hindu's yearbook. I have all the yearbooks with me, which carries all the records of all the players of all the major tournaments, cricket, Ranji Trophy, Duleep Trophy, test matches, all matches. And I was not like very keen at that time writing on sports, but I was very keen on reading sports initially. I used to read a lot on cricket, on sports. I would prepare my own notes, keep them ready. And then I was very good in drawing also. We used to have very good practical notebooks those days. So I would draw. I started as a cartoonist also. I used to make cartoons. One of my cartoons appeared in the Tribune. That was in a cricket match. There was very, very slow scoring. Very slow scoring. So I made that cartoon, that the hare and tortoise race. Similar cartoon I made in the Tribune. You see, this is the pace at which the two teams are playing, and the spectators are getting bored because of slow run rate, very, very slow run rate. So Initially, my cartoon was liked very much, but then I was like in college magazine, I would write on science and other subjects, and I never knew like I would be a journalist. I would only because I used to read a lot, buy good magazines, read lots of novels, fiction, non-fiction. If you see my personal library, you have seen it. In Ludhiana, I have about 3,000 books. Similarly, in Chandigarh, I have now about 5,000 books. So I used to read a lot. So any subject you ask me anything, I would know. Okay, this is what is latest. For example, when there was a crash, air crash, and they said they are looking for black box. So at that time, not many people knew what is black box about. So they said, we must write what is black box. I said, I'll write. He said, how come you will write? I said, I have got a book from Boeing. Their latest aircraft book is published by Boeing. They have carried something about black box. I said, this is not black box. This is orange in color. So Mr. Bhatia said, okay, you go and bring and write about it. I went home. I brought this book. I wrote about it. So this is how like my initial interest was to have a background or a mog or a sort of a library of my own where anybody would need any information, I should have that information ready. Because those days there were no Google. You have to rely upon your own resources, your own mog, your own library, your own information center. So I was very good at that. I would keep my notes. I would keep track of how much crime has taken place in Ludhiana during this year, previous year, and previous to previous year. So I would do a comparative account. Those days, there was a new sort of crime started. That was crime for Dowry deaths. And Gyani Zayal Singh was chief minister, and they 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 made so stringent laws that anybody who was accused of a dowry death or who would harass a daughter-in-law or any girl, wedded girl, would have very strict punishment. So those stories were highlighted even when I was working for Morning Echo because they used to play up those stories. That was a paper tabloid. So their main thing was playing up crime stories. So dowry deaths, dowry cases, dowry harassment, all those cases were highlighted. So I used to do a comparison. Okay, how genuine are the dowry cases? Are they actually dowry cases or is harassment? So a number of cases I worked out. I said no, there was no dowry involved. It was ego clash between husband and the wife, and then the girl went back to her parents, and then to get to teach a lesson to the boy and his family, they would level charges. They demanded dowry. So those that was the job of a journalist also, not to report what police says, but to go back and find out the truth behind the story. So on those days, that was journalism. You always try to be credible, factual, and very objective without taking sides. So that was what I thought was my training. As a science student, you have to be very accurate. And as a student of literature, I managed to learn some language. And then as a player, as a sportsman, used to learn okay, how to be very tolerant to situations, not to be reactive, not to be over carried. If you get carried away, you can't be very like sincere to your job. Then you become emotional, and you are not supposed to be emotional while being a journalist. So these are all these factors they combined and they helped me in changing from what I wanted to be originally a doctor to then I thought because all my hard work till BSc medical, it didn't get me through to medical college. So I took it as God's will. And God doesn't want me to be a doctor. So other option the other talent in me is of a journalist. So I said, okay, number one option is out. So number two option is journalism. So that's why I said no more science. I'll go into journalism. And how this is how I got into journalism.
This is actually very interesting ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ decide ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ journalist banna hai. Like that's actually a very interesting story on how you decided to become a journalist, even though you were pursuing to be a doctor.
Yeah.
That's actually a very interesting story. ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਫਿਰ sports ਦਾ ਸ਼ੌਕ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਪਿਆ ਮਤਲਬ ਉਸ time?
And sports, as I told you, like from school days, early school days, I was playing hockey and cricket. Every day I would play. And when I started playing hockey, we didn't have hockey sticks. ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹ ਦਰਖਤਾਂ ਦੇ ਟਾਹਣੇ ਕੱਟ ਕੇ ਨਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕੁੰਡਾ ਬਣਾਉਂਦੇ, ਕੁੰਡਾ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ, ਕੁੰਡਾ ਖੁੱਦੋ ਕੁੰਡੀ, ਕੁੰਡੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ, ਹਾਕੀ ਦੇ ਕੱਟ ਕੇ ਇੱਕ ਚਿਜ਼ਲ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਹਾਕੀ ਸਟਿਕ ਬਣਾ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਸੀ. ਅਤੇ ਦੈਨ ਪੀਸ ਆਫ ਕਲੋਥ ਉਹਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਰਬੜ ਬੈਂਡਸ ਰੈਪ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਬਾਲ ਬਣਾ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਸੀ. ਸੋ ਵੀ ਯੂਜ਼ ਟੂ ਪਲੇ ਖੁੱਦੋ ਕੁੰਡੀ. ਖੁੱਦੋ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਬਾਲ ਨੂੰ, ਵਿਦ ਕਲੋਥ ਐਂਡ ਸਾਈਕਲ 'ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਟਿਊਬ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਸੀ, ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵੇਸਟ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਸੀ ਟਿਊਬ, ਉਹਦੀਆਂ ਛੋਟੀ ਛੋਟੀਆਂ ਰਬੜਾਂ ਕੱਟ ਕੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਚੜਾ ਦੇਣੀ ਆ, ਉਹਦੀ ਬਾਲ ਬਣਾ ਲੈਣੀ. ਉਹ ਖੇਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਖੁੱਦੋ ਕੁੰਡੀ. Only when I was into 6th standard in the school, one day we were called to the school's store. So we all went there, the entire class. And the teacher said, you are getting a gift today. And we said, what gift? You are taking us to storeroom. What will be there at the storeroom? If you have taken us to the staff room or other places, we could understand that you're giving up some sweets or something. But they took us to the store, and then a big box was lying there. When they opened the box, they were hockey sticks. So we were given, all of us who used to play hockey sticks. We were so excited. We had never held a hockey stick in our hands. So we came out, and they gave us a ball of leather and hockey sticks. We didn't know how to handle a hockey stick because we used to play with those khundas. So first day in the school, so we played with new hockey sticks. Not many would know how to hit, and it would slip from our hands, or things like this. Very unusual experience, very exciting experience. Then gradually we get used to hockey sticks. And then they said that after we were 6th, 7th and 8th were taken into the school hockey team. We were waiting. We was junior, so we couldn't get into the team. But in 7th, since I was one of the good players, and so was Gurdesh Pal, he played for India, you see. So we were there, and then we got into the team in the 7th itself, school team. 7th and 8th, I played in a school team. But still, like at that time, cricket used to be a big craze, especially in winter months. So we would play cricket, and in the evening, because not many boys would otherwise play in the evening hockey, they would play cricket. So cricket and hockey, then that was the main entertainment for youngsters those days. You will go to a nearby public park and play cricket and contribute money to purchase a bat and a ball. So then make wickets of the bricks, or use it stem of the tree as a wicket and play cricket, because that used to be the cheapest sport at that time, and we used to need one bat and one ball. That's all. So cricket we started. Then gradually evening was the only thing was to play hockey or cricket. There was nothing else to do those days. And there was no TV. The radio was not for us, for the children, because radio would have in the afternoon program for farmers. Evening they would have Gurbani and again program for farmers, and then news. And nothing for children, school boys and girls. There was nothing on radio those days. And what else you would do? People like me, I would even sometime go to a library, a municipal library or reading room. So there was one library in Sri Guru Singh Sabha School, and one municipal library where they used to basically that was a vaccination center, and the evening it used to be the reading room for they would municipal committee would bring newspapers. There was no other source of entertainment, so sports was the only way to spend your evening. So I got into sports, and I was gradually good in sports. As you see, it's a God gifted thing. So I would play good hockey, I would play good cricket, and so rest of my friends in B section, they were all into cricket. All my friends in my own section, A section, we were all good hockey players. We were in the school hockey team as well as school football team, A section. B section, they won't play hockey, they won't play football. B section, since Ravi was there, B section, Rajinder Bhatia was B section. So I used to go with them to play cricket. And every time my section people would tell, why you go to Hindi section? Why you play cricket? Huh? So those days they were like very, very, very selective. You should be restrictive to your group, your section. Why you have loyalties for other group? So, but I said no. Sports is sports. So I would go and play with them and come back and then play hockey with them. And hockey a game I won't miss. Cricket game Sundays we would play cricket matches every Sunday. So that was the main entertainment on Sundays because our family used to go to Gurdwara Alamgir on Sundays. So I would skip. I said, no, I am playing a cricket match. They said, you don't go to Gurdwara on Sundays. You just make an excuse to play cricket. I said, yes, I will go next time, this time. I make an excuse every time. But Sunday match, we won't miss. And those days, cricket ball used to be 5 rupees. Good cricket ball. And on Ravi's scooter, we would go to Clock Tower. Indoka Sports was there. So we would go there and buy a ball on Saturday evening. While I would buy my newspapers as well from Clock Tower, and nearby shop, sports shop, will buy a cricket ball for Sunday's match. Every Sunday match, we will use a new ball for 5 rupees. And then we gradually, one day, since Ravi was very good, affluent family, rich family, so they had an ambassador car. So we all members who were playing cricket on Sundays, we decided to go to Jalandhar to buy the rest of the equipment like leg guards, abdominal guard, batting gloves, wicket keeping gloves, more 2 bats, more balls. So one day we went, collected money and went to Jalandhar in his car and brought good equipment, cricket playing equipment. So then it became a ritual. Every year we would take Ravi's car to Jalandhar and go and buy cricket equipment and then use it. And then my place, our home in Chandigarh, Ludhiana, used to be the storehouse. So the cricket kit used to be at my place. Every Sunday we would take out the kit, play, and then put it back at my place. So I would look after, maintain, like even the left guards, they need some repair, or keeping gloves, they need repair, or batting gloves need some repair. So I would take care of that. And so my home, and then a shop outside our house, Kashmiri Tea Stall, became the meeting point of our club, of cricket club. And every evening we would assemble there and then go out for a gedi and then come back and have tea at Kashmiri stall and then plan what match we are playing and which club we are playing next Sunday. So this is how cricket got in to my life. But my basic love was hockey. So we also had a very good club in Model Town, in Godir Khan School, where lots of players used to come. And some big names also. There was Colonel Raminder Singh. He was son-in-law of Byan Singh, Chief Minister. He and his elder brother Jagtar Singh, they were very good players. They both played for India. Not for India in Olympics, but in test matches and other matches. Then there was Devinder Singh Benepal, Garai Paji. He also was very good centre half. He was in the World Cup camp 1975. But then they said he has some problem, health problem, hole in his heart, so he had to leave the camp. But he was a very, very good hockey player, very, very good cricket player. Then there was Colonel Jawar Sharma. Then there was Ajit Singh Godu. They were excellent players. Then 1968 Asian Games champion Indian hockey team, 66 goalkeeper Jagdeep Phulka. He was from government college. He was also playing for our club, Lions Club Hockey, India's goalkeeper. So we used to organize as hockey players also as members of those, though they were all very senior, we were just bachas, school going kids. So, but we used to go there, play with them every evening in Gujar Khan school grounds, and then organize Major Pupinder Singh hockey tournament. And used to contribute 2 ana, 4 ana, 6 ana. And those days, some of the great players like MP Ganesh, who was later India's captain, India's coach, now he is 77, 78. He used to come as a member of the Corps of Signals team because Colonel Raminder was also in army and he was in Corps of Signals. So he would bring that team to Ludhiana very often for practice matches as well as for Major Pupinder Singh tournament. So I have seen MP Ganesh playing barefoot on Gujar Khan school grounds. So many other players, Pawar, Maggar Singh, Raminder Singh, all they who play for Corps of Signals, then Jeet Pal, then Surjit, he played for Kenya, then Hardev, he played for Kenya. They used to come as members of sports college team. There were other Rajvinder, Mangu, Kulwant. He also played for India. They all used to come there and play in that tournament, Pupinder Singh tournament. So Hockey Association was also because of Gujar Khan School and especially because of Raminder and Jagtar Paji and Devinder Paji. And then that ground produced many good hockey players because good competition used to be there. Good level of players used to come every evening to practice and we used to learn a lot from them. So cricket was a different group, but hockey was my different group, but I was in both the groups. So this is how I got into cricket and hockey simultaneously. But in college also, again, it's a very, very rare. If you go to government college even today, Government College Ludhiana, in the corridor, which leads to the office of the principal and the library, there are old photographs, group photographs, in which at least there are 3 or 4 of my photographs as a member of the college hockey team, as a member of the college cricket team, and as a member of the college editorial board. So I was the only science student who was in college hockey team, who was in college cricket team. I played with Yashpal Sharma. We were together in the college cricket team. He played for India test matches for so many years. And unfortunately, he's no more. But we used to be together in the college team. And then college editorial board. So I was it was rare for anybody, a science student, to be on 3 different forums representing different sections of the college. So then, since I was on the college editorial board, initially as science editor, then when I joined MA English, then I became editor of English section. That was the main section. And since I had started working for media, journalism, I had done journalism before joining MA English. So even the production of the college magazine, Satluj. So Professor Sood used to be our head of the English section. So he would ask me, Prabhjot, since you know what sort of printing is to be done, what sort of typeface we have to use, proofreading, you handle all this. So I would go to the press. There used to be one GS Printers in Ludhiana where college magazine used to be published. So after college hours, I would go there to the printing press and work on the college magazine whenever the issue was to come out. Every 3 months it used to come out, the Satluj. So I would work with the printer go there, do the proofreading, do the editing, and then see the production of the magazine. So gradually, since I had my training and I was already working for newspapers, so that is how my progress into journalism went up and up. And then after MA English, MSc in journalism, I full time, then no more playing around, and then games also, like then I didn't get time to play hockey anymore. And but I kept on playing cricket in a while, and we had a club, martial club in Ludhiana, so we would assemble in Ludhiana. So some of the players like Gursharan Sidhu, he's now in United States. Shekhar Khanna is in Jalandhar. Ravi Gupta, of course, he's in Ludhiana. Then Gursharan Chot, we used to call him. He's in Ludhiana. Then the one guy, Ashni Koel, we call him Mama Hasnu. He is in Ludhiana. He's got a printing press. His father was press manager at Punjab Agriculture University, Mr. Arjun Chand Goel. Then we had Ravi Jr. Then we had number of coaches, Punjab Sports Department coaches who were playing for our club, like Ravi Kant. He was District Sports Officer, Cricket Ludhiana. Then Charanjit Singh. He is associated with Sani family. You know, five sisters, Sani sister played for India in hockey. So one of them is married to Charanjit. He was cricket coach at Kapurthala. So he also used to play for us in Guru Nanak League in Ludhiana, Martial Club. So a number of coaches, Sushil Sharma, he was sports officer cricket at Hoshiarpur. So they would come every Sunday to Ludhiana to play for Martial Club. So this is how cricket got into my profession. And every Sunday, everybody would ask me, Paji, मेरा नाम ट्रिब्यून आ जाएगा कल मैं 2 विकेटां लईयां I scored 20 runs. So our criteria used to be in Guru Nanak Dev League, when every Sunday there used to be 30 matches. Only names of those players who had taken either 2 wickets or scored more than 20 runs. So we would mention their name in the report. Satluj Club beat Ludhiana Club. Satluj Club scored 140 runs. These players scored 20 or more runs. And these players took 2 or more wickets. Similarly, other team. So everybody would say, Prabhjot Paji, my name, मैं आज 20 रन बनाते 25 बनाते 40 बनाते मेरा नाम जरूर आवे. So this is how my contact base in sports, in cricket, in different sports, like similarly other college matches. And those days Tribune used to take care. We cover all inter-college matches, all important tournaments, all state championships. So this is how your resource bank, your sources, your contacts, they spread. And Tribune was since the most readable and most valuable and most credible paper. So anything which appeared in the Tribune was taken for granted. So this is how the progress was made.
ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਨਾ ਇਸ ਟੌਪਿਕ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਇਨੀਸ਼ੀਅਲੀ ਆਪਣਾ ਨੈਟਵਰਕ ਆਪਣਾ ਕਨੈਕਸ਼ਨਸ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਬਿਲਡ ਕੀਤੇ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਵਿਲ ਕਮ ਬੈਕ ਇਨ ਜਸਟ ਅ ਸੈਕਿੰਡ ਬਟ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਆਈ ਵਾਂਟ ਇੱਕ ਚੀਜ਼ ਰਹਿ ਗਈ ਹੈ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ अर्ਲੀ ਚਾਈਲਡਹੁੱਡ ਤੋਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਰੀਡਿੰਗ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਝ ਰਿਕਾਰਡ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ ਸ਼ੌਕ ਕਿੱਥੋਂ ਪਿਆ
Cricket, basically cricket ਤੋਂ basically I used to, I still have notebooks at my place. I used to record cricket match morning shuru hona and I would sit close to a radio, listen to the running commentary, and would every run scored I would Sardesai won kidi bowling Charlie Griffith the bowling panjवीं ball the 1 run फिर 4 run. I would record like a cricket score sheet. I would make my own score sheet, record. And then our own club, when we used to play, then every members, how many runs he scored. Shekhar, this match 20 runs. Gursharan 27. I used to keep a data. So we would tell everybody. Everybody was so excited. How many runs I have scored so far? I would tell them, Gursharan, you have played 17 matches and you have scored 400 runs so far. Shekhar, you have taken 27 wickets so far. You have taken 3 catches so far. You have missed so many catches. So I would maintain a record of each and every member of the club team also. So it's basically because I used to keep a record of Indian cricket players, especially Punjab Ranji Trophy players, because I would watch Punjab soccer, Punjab hockey, Punjab's athletes, Punjab table tennis players, badminton players, because those days Mr. Palla was there, Noratan Singh Palla. He was Secretary General Badminton Federation of India. He was from Amritsar. His sons used to play badminton. He was Secretary Municipal Corporation Ludhiana when corporation became after Municipal Committee. So he was a good contact for all badminton stories. Very nice guy. So he would brief me. And when India and Malaysia played a Thomas Cup match at Ludhiana, I was the only journalist who was covering not only for the Tribune, but for Sports Week, Sports Star, and other magazines. So it was a big event for me to cover Thomas Cup match in Ludhiana way back in early 70s, 78, 79. So some of the great badminton players of those times, Dinesh Khanna, Davinder Ahuja, they played in that match. And Pancho Gunalan was the non-playing captain of Malaysian team. He was a great player, Pancho Gunalan. So it was seeing those players in action those days. And when they would see me, they would all know, okay, he's the guy who is writing their report in the Tribune or Sports Week or others. So they would always be very friendly with me. And whenever I would talk to them, they would be very receptive. They would tell me whatever questions I would have. They would answer my questions. And they were very friendly. They would remain in touch with me. Similarly, in other sports also, like I used to go to Fagwada for football, JCT football team. All players, like great Inder Singh, Parminder, Sukhvinder, their coach Gurcharan Parmar, then Patia, Ravi, all goalkeeper Charanjit, anybody, Punjab football, Punjab hockey, any player. So any badminton player in Punjab, those youngsters, older players, Satish Bhatia became a friend of me when he went to play in Punjab Badminton Championship. He was a great player. He is retired as a wing commander, and he is the guy who was given the honor of flying AN-12 from Chandigarh to Delhi Air Force Museum, the last flight of AN-12, which was a transport aircraft. So Satish Bhatia was given the honor when AN-12 was phased out of Indian Air Force operations. So he flew the last aircraft to museum. And he is also, Satish Bhatia is also a very rare, he had a rare distinction when in 1980, India went to Moscow Olympics. So India carried its horses for equestrian events. India's team went in a transport aircraft of Indian Air Force, and Satish Bhatia flew that aircraft to Moscow Olympics. He took Indian team to Moscow. He brought back Indian Olympic team from Moscow. Though he himself didn't play in Olympics, he played in all major tournaments, Thomas Cup, he was national champion. He was the one, he used to be known for his spin service. His spin service would even deceive the world's best players. Rudy Hartono of Indonesia, he was unbeatable. And Satish Bhatia was the only player who took a set of Rudy Hartono in All England Badminton Championship. That's the greatest badminton championship, All England. So Satish Bhatia was one. So now he lives in Chandigarh. So he became a good friend when I was covering Punjab Badminton Championship. So like this, Davinder Ahuja, Dinesh Khanna, great player. He's the only one, Dinesh Khanna, till date. I still remember, and he is the only one who won Asian Championship till date. No other Indian has won Asian Championship, though Indian players, Prakash Padukone has won All England Championship, which is more prestigious. Others have won, like PV Sindhu has won 2 Olympic medals. Saina Nehwal has won 1 Olympic medal. Others have won medals, Olympics, but no one has won Asian Championship individual except for Dinesh Khanna till date. So Dinesh Khanna was a great player, so I used to meet him quite often. I covered him. So those were the days I had chance. That's why how my like I used to be everywhere, be it badminton, be it football, be it hockey, be it cricket. So wherever, because people always wanted coverage in the Tribune, and I was representing Tribune those days, early years, from 76 till 79. I came to Chandigarh. And after Chandigarh, also, I was specially chosen by Mr. Samuel Banerjee to go to Asian Games. Though there were a couple of other people who were senior to me in sports, but Sam said, "No, your understanding of sports is I respect that, and I would like you to come with me to cover Asian Games." So we went to cover Asian Games, and I was the first one in the history of the Tribune to go out of Chandigarh and report a major event beyond Delhi. So I went to 1981, 82. I went to Bombay to cover World Cup. I was the first journalist, Tribune journalist, to go beyond Delhi to cover any event. And in 86, I was the first Tribune journalist to go to London, go abroad to cover a sporting event. And I was in 92, I was the first Tribune journalist to go to Olympics. So I had so many firsts in sports. So this is why I still think my association with sports has done me a lot of good professionally. Academics, I would have even gone into civil services. I cleared preliminary tests. But I thought, since I had seen during my early years how the civil servants are handled, how they work under political pressures, and how they become like, at times, political bosses dominate them so much. And since in the beginning of my career in 1975, 76, the country was under emergency. Indira Gandhi imposed emergency. And I had seen those days how the system worked, how the bureaucracy was controlled or maimed by the political powers. Like Mrs. Gandhi became almost a dictator at that time. So I had seen that. So my respect for civil services had like suffered a setback. So I thought, no, civil services is not for me. I won't go to civil services. Instead, I would like to be a journalist, and I would like to be a part of watchdog of democracy and not become a lapdog of democracy. So this is the option I had after I couldn't go to medical college. I also had an option because I was good in studies. I would have qualified for civil services, but I said no. Journalists are the people who are very important to a system like where we live in, the liberal democracy. So that's one factor which also pushed me into journalism. Okay, yes, if you have to work for the people, their rights, their grievances, their issues, then you should be very forthright and become a journalist, highlight their issues without ever worrying about the powers who are running the country or running the district or running the state. So be not worried about who they are, but your job is to highlight the grievances of a common man on the street. So my journalism career throughout, I always focused on a common man. I never got like um, impressed either by or influenced by or browbeaten by either bureaucrats or politicians. I always held them with respect. Whatever respect they deserved, I gave them. But I never allowed in my writing anybody to dominate me or tell me what to write, what not to write, irrespective of their status. Bureaucrats, though they were good friends, politicians, but I would write what I thought was in public interest. So that's the training which sports gives you. That's the courage which sports give you. Because My perception throughout journalism was, when I started my career, I started as sports reporter, as I have been telling you. Because with sports, you learn the ability to describe events. Sports has the freedom, where you can be little subjective. You can say, yes, he failed. He should have done this. He didn't cross the ball. He didn't pass on the ball, or he didn't. He just dropped a catch, and that led to the downfall of the team. You could comment in sports, so you learn to describe events. So you can dramatize your sports reporting, and when you come to the crime reporting, you learn accuracy, because in crime you can't take chances or liberties with facts. You have to be very factual, very correct. So once you know how to describe events, and then accuracy comes with crime reporting, and then subsequently after sports and crime, you become very reliable journalist, because you know you are accurate and you have command over language. So that's what is required of a journalist: command and accuracy. So that comes both from sports and crime, which were initial my starting areas in journalism.
ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਬੜੀ ਇੰਟਰਸਟਿੰਗ ਉਹ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਬਈ from crime and sports you can become
A good journalist.
yeah. And this you one thing that you emphasize is to report the story and not give your personal color and view. ਅੱਜਕੱਲ ਦੀ ਜਰਨਲਿਜ਼ਮ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਹੀ ਇਹੀ ਹੈ। ਤਾਂ ਹੀ ਜੋ ਮੇਨ ਸਟ੍ਰੀਮ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਅਖਬਾਰ ਹੈ, ਲੋਕੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੁਣਨਾ ਹੀ ਬੰਦ ਕਰਤਾ। ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਿਰਫ news ਦੱਸੋ, don't give us your opinion.
Yeah. You see, journalism, I must tell you, like little background of journalism. I have been into 3 phases of journalism. Last 50 years, I've been in journalism. When we started, there was very total freedom. But then, very beginning of my journalism career, came the emergency. Emergency meant they wanted to control your powers of expression or freedom of expression, because they had different laws. They would punish journalists. So before me, before I joined the Tribune editor was almost detained under National Security Act, or the Maintenance of Internal Security Act. It was called MISA. And 2 or 3 of the Tribune journalists, Mr. Shyam Khosla and Mr. Makhan Lal Kak in Srinagar, they were detained under MISA.
ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਦੱਸ ਦਿਓ ਕਿ emergency ਕੀ ਸੀਗੀ? Like what was
emergency? Like Indira Gandhi, when she was Prime Minister, there was a verdict of Allahabad High Court which went against her. So her election was declared null and void. So instead of resigning, she immediately imposed emergency and refused to vacate her seat and wanted to stay in power. So she withdrew all powers. The powers were all cabinet and other were taken, and she became all in all, and all freedoms, controls were taken. Even the media. So anything which would appear in media, they would take serious view and arrest journalists, detain them under National Security Act. Anybody who would speak against the government, he would be detained under MISA. MISA was Maintenance of Internal Security Act.
Basically, ਇੱਕ ਤਰਫ ਉਹਦੀ ਪਾਵਰ ਸਾਰੀ ਖਤਮ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਸੀ. She was supposed to resign, but she became like a dictator.
Yeah.
And she grabbed all the power.
Grabbed all the powers, and she became all the powerful. And at that time, her youngest son, Sanjay Gandhi, he was also a flyer. And he became mother's advisor. And whatever they did, mother and son did during those emergency days. So then different political parties, different leaders, they started agitations against emergency. They started demonstrations. They demanded lifting of emergency. So a movement was started. And some of the newspapers Like J.P. Narayan was the guy who led the movement. So it was J.P. movement which started against emergency. In Punjab, Akalis also started a movement, Jail Paro. They would court arrest every day against emergency. So in Punjab, Akalis did, but in rest of India, Jayaprakash Narayan, he led a movement. And number of newspapers also came up those days. And they were all, some of them were writing against emergency, opposing Indira Gandhi's policies, Sanjay Gandhi's, because what they did was they tried to enforce a number of things which were against, which people didn't like, though they were good for the country. For example, population control. So they would try to forcibly do like sterilization. They would take away 3 children, they would forcibly take away the man or the woman, sterilize them. So then encroachments, they try to clear Delhi and other places, all encroachments, because a lot of encroachments had taken place. Number of such things were happening which were people didn't like, especially the sterilization, the family planning programs, and enforcement of those programs, and then controlling media, gagging media. So gagging freedoms, any anti-voice would be like snubbed, or uh, legal action would be taken against them. They would be sent to jail without trial.
Isn't
No
that
tri-
like a fascist?
Yeah, it was absolutely that. And then that voice, after that, Indira Gandhi was thrown out of power. 77, for the first time, a non-Congress government came into power in India. So that was JP, like Janata Party government, with Morarji Desai as Prime Minister. So first time in India history, there was a non-Congress government that came out of that fallout of emergency in India. And again, media got a revival. So media which was snubbed, gagged, controlled during emergency period,
By the state.
again heaved a sigh of relief. Gave, yes, we are back. We are back as watchdog of democracy. So we started our career during that time in 75, 76, 77. There was emergency and media was gagged and newspapers were feeling like um, controlled, sniffled, and things like this. So they, at times, they couldn't even write or cover events which they wanted to cover. But some papers, some newspapers, especially in Delhi and those supporting J.P. Narayan's movement, they took up stand and they took up cudgels and they fought against the emergency. And because of their efforts and efforts of the like-minded parties, like parties who were with the J.P. Narayan and like Akali Dal in Punjab and other parties, so they forced the government ultimately to lift the emergency, and then elections were held and Congress was defeated for the first time, voted out of power. So that was one phase. And then second phase was the growth. The actual growth period started from 77 for media growth. Then newspapers, media flourished. And for the first time, like TV came in big way in India. 82 Asian Games was the beginning of introduction of television in India. And then subsequently, more and more channels gradually started coming. So electronic media's entry followed the end of emergency. Print media increased, newspapers increased in sizes. They went out to new places of publications. Like earlier in Chandigarh, there was only one newspaper, the Tribune. Then came Express, and gradually afterwards, after a few years or subsequently, Hindustan Times also came to Chandigarh. Times of India came to Chandigarh. Other newspapers started. Himachal something started. Then Hindi papers started. Amar Ujala, Bhaskar. They all came, but they were all in the second phase of in journalism. After 77, post 77, there was a huge growth of journalism. Newspapers grew in size. channels came, number of news channels, entertainment channels, sports channels, specialized channels that came. And that was the phase when journalism was actually language growing, flourishing in a big way. And huge growth, and even employment opportunities multiplied. Lots of people, number of schools, colleges, and universities started journalism classes. So s- all students would get into profession because the demand was so much. So vernacular newspapers, for the first time, they got a big say, and their growth became phenomenal. Many newspapers, they grew during that phase. So there was a time when in Indian journalism, Times of India was one group which used to bring out either newspaper or magazine catering to almost every walk of life, like for women issues, science, uh, entertainment, films, everything. They would bring out a magazine. And likewise, other newspapers also started diversifying into magazines, into different publications, into tabloids, evening newspapers, and also then came the phase of city pullouts. Newspapers started the special city pullouts. So much of diversification took place in the second phase of journalism. And then came the third phase, which is the latest phase, which is social media started outgrowing conventional and traditional media. Gradually, now traditional media like print media or TV channels started losing out, and social media tools like Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, they gradually overtook, and now the newspapers have lost the maximum. TV is number two on the losers list. And number three, all other magazines and other publications and other media channels, they are shrinking in size, and social media is growing in size. So this is the third phase of journalism, which I witnessed during my lifetime. I saw, like, when I started, for example, getting a telegraphic authority from a newspaper organization was a big thing. And whenever you would go to a press conference and you would say, "Ah, yes, I have got telegraphic authority," everybody would look at you. "Oh, you have got telegraphic authority to send a telegram?" It was such a prestigious thing. You have a telegraph authority and you can telegram from anywhere. So not many people would, normally they would send lafafas, like through transport buses. They would write their stories in the morning, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. By 12 o'clock, they would send a dispatch by bus to publication center in Chandigarh or in Jalandhar. But very few journalists would have an ability to file a report even at night. Latest development, they would send a telegram. And initially, newspapers would tell you, use telegraphic authority sparingly, only for important stories, not for routine stories. Routine story you can send next morning by the Lafafa. But urgent, any development, any major crime story, any major political development, you send by telegram. So those were the times when telegram was very, very important. And getting telegraphic authority, okay, you are sending a telegram without being charged. Office will pay afterwards to the telegram office, CTO. You don't have to pay. You just go and submit your copy and get a receipt that you have filed a copy. That's all. So that time, getting a telegraph authority, I started getting my telegraph authority very early, very first year of my career. And then subsequently till telegram just vanished. And I've seen that phase. And then the second phase was you couldn't send a telegram from anywhere. Then the teleprinter, no, telex started. Telex came, and telex again, access was very limited. Not many people would have telex machines at their places, or district centers at telegram offices won't have telex. They would use that Morse key, tuck, 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 tuck. They would send telegrams first to their headquarters in Chandigarh, and Chandigarh headquarters would then send it to the Tribune office. Similar in Jalandhar, telegram would go to Jalandhar CTO, CTO would then send to the Punjab Kesari's telegram, Punjab Kesari, Ajit, and very few. But Tribune would get maximum telegrams because Tribune used to give telegraph authorities to all his correspondents. At that time, very few staffers, as I said earlier. Most other places, Ludhiana, for example, was a big town. Amritsar was a big town. Jalandhar was a big town. We had only stringers. Staffers were only in few places. And then gradually, when Mr. Prem Bhatia came, when I joined, afterwards, the Tribune started recruiting more and more staff reporters. Earlier, it was all dependent upon part-time correspondents, though they were told not to work for other newspapers. If you are working for the Tribune, you are not allowed to work for HT or Times of India or Indian Express, because normally Delhi papers won't carry much of Punjab stories. Only Tribune would carry all mafusal, regional, local news stories. Delhi papers won't carry much. So that was a time when we used to have a typewriter, and sending a picture was so difficult. We would, like, if I had gone to a spot with a photographer, so he would click photographs, then get the film roll and go to the bus stand and ask which bus is going next to Chandigarh. So he'll hand over the film roll to the conductor of the bus and will tell him, request him, if somebody will from the Tribune will come when you reach Chandigarh, he'll take the film roll from you. So then the film roll will be delivered, and then somebody from the dark room would call the correspondent or the photographer, please tell us the caption, which photograph we are to use, and tell us the caption. So we would tell them, this is the picture and this is a photograph. But now things are so changed. You can send anything from anywhere. At that time, sending a story or reaching Chandigarh or sending a telegram on Saturdays, on Sundays, on holidays was difficult because CTOs won't open. Only Central Telegram Office, which was only at district headquarters. Suppose you have gone to a remote area in Himachal and there is a bus accident and people have died. How would you file a report from there? So it was so difficult. So we would try to run to the nearest district headquarters to find a CTO, because smaller towns and they won't have telegram facility on holidays, on Sundays, things like this. Either you have to come back to Chandigarh after traveling 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, or you look for somebody from where you can send a telegram or dictate your story on telephone. And telephone was very expensive. Even getting telephone calls through was so difficult. They always say, lines are not available. Lines are busy, not available. So we had a telephone authority to make lightning calls in case of emergency. So lightning calls would supersede all other calls, urgent call, this call, but lightning call would be made instantly. But at times, even for lightning call, we had to wait for half an hour, 1 hour. And then office would tell me, as brief as you can. Tell us as much as you can, but as fast as you can, because time is money. And urgent calls or lightning call would cost you hell of money. So somebody very good, efficient stenographer would be at the other end. He would take your notes. He will then file your report, write your report. You just give him facts, bare facts, or the introduction of the story, and then tell him, these are the facts, please put down in the story. But that was the time. So difficult to send a report or a photograph from the field. And gradually things started improving. Communication networks started improving. There was a telecommunication revolution. Then we got pagers. Then we got gradually cell phones. And then things started. But cell phones were initially very, very expensive. They would tell us only to receive your call. Don't make a call. Even receiving a call was very expensive. So they would tell you, your contacts, if they contact you on cell phone, please be very brief. Your budget, your total is this much. You can spend only this much on your telephone bill. So if you overspend, if you spend more time, airtime, then you will have to pay from your pocket. Office will only reimburse the sanctioned amount. If you are allowed 1,500 rupees a month, they will not allow you 1,800 rupees a month unless there are exceptional chances, exceptional circumstances. So then cell phone came, but gradually now telephony has become so cheap, and communication has become so easy, so good. You don't have to. Telegram is over. You don't hear of Telegram anymore. It's almost over. It's gone. It's finished. So are the Telegram offices. So you are no more public call offices. You don't have PCOs here and there from where you can make calls. Now you have your own phone, everything. So things have changed so much, and it's not only the communication, but even the management of newspapers, management of media houses has changed so much. It has undergone a revolutionary changes. Initially, there used to be, when I joined the profession, there used to be three types of ownerships of newspapers. Mainly, people used to be proprietor, means they are owner and they are editors and they are running the paper. Like most of the Jalandhar newspapers, as I said, Ajit, initially it was proprietorship. Sadhu Singh Hamdard was the owner and proprietor and editor-in-chief also. Lala Jagannath was owner and proprietor of Hind Samachar Group. So similarly, then there was Yash, he was Milap. Other papers also similarly. And only very few papers those days. Tribune was an exception. Tribune was only newspaper, even till today, it's the only newspaper which is not owned by anybody. It is run by a public trust. Though in Indian journalism, there is a big respect for newspapers, is for the Tribune in North and the Hindu in South. Hindu was a proprietorship. It was Kasturi family which used to run Hindu paper. It is much later now, afterwards, that lots of things have changed, and ownership and things like this have changed in Hindu also. But Tribune remains the only newspaper which doesn't have an owner. So this was either a proprietorship or a trust, which was rare, like was the Tribune. And then came were the monopoly houses or the corporate houses like Birlas, Tatas. They were running Times of India, Hindustan Times, and Goenkas were running Indian Express. So they were big industrial houses which were running newspapers in India. This was number two category, number three category. Then some political parties also had their newspapers. Like Congress used to bring out National Herald. It was Congress publication. Then organizer was Jan Sangh or BJP's paper. Similarly, communists had Link and Patriot, the leftist leaning papers. So all political parties, they had their own papers, and but very few independent newspapers. They were all either belonging to corporate houses or to proprietorships or to political parties. But papers like Tribune, who were independent, they were totally apolitical, not with any religion, any region, any ethnic group, or any monopoly house, any industrial house. So there were very few people. But now, you see, if you see most of the papers, most of the channels, now you can safely call them, okay, they are aligned with this party, they are aligned with this group, they are aligned with capitalists, they are aligned with leftists, they are aligned with socialists. So now the alignments are very clear. That's why now the media's credibility, as you said, is more opinionated than being objective. When we went to School of Journalism, the first thing we were taught was objectivity. Objectivity is the main thing. You don't have to comment. You have to write what is the actual factual report from the spot. You are not supposed to comment You are just to report so and so said, so and so killed, so and so was killed in a road accident, or so and so was murdered. This, or the government has increased the bank rates, or the government has decided a new law, whatever. Only factual reporting, no commentary. Whether this law will affect people, whether this price hike announced by the monopoly houses will hit count, people will only say the government, this company. Even at times, we were prohibited from mentioning the name of the business houses, industrial houses. We will say an industrial house has announced this. A marketing company has announced this. Like private businessmen, private traders, their names won't be mentioned. They would say this is the advertisement. So we must stay clear of or promoting or demoting any business or commercial interest of anybody. So guidelines were very strict. No gifts, no hospitality was to be accepted by journalists of standing. Though smaller newspapers and others, they would be easily lured by some promises, some gifts, some trips, things like this. But mainstream papers were normally expected to be ethical and stay clear of all these things without getting influenced by anybody, any pressure, or any lurement. They have to carry out their work efficiently in an ethical manner and in a professional manner. So those were the distinction those days. And but now anybody with a cell phone is a communicator. They send you videos, they send you messages, but without ever taking responsibility. But media still, whatever it is though it has been cut to size by social media, but credibility is still with the conventional media, whether it's print, electronic, or audio. Still so many laws are applicable to conventional media. Now you have can open a YouTube channel, a social media channel anytime without any registration. But for print media or conventional media, your registration is mandatory under law. And you are still controlled by so many laws. And some laws are those which were enacted by British when they were ruling India. They are 100 and 120 years, 150-year old laws. Like our Indian system is controlled by Indian Penal Code, which is of 19th century, or whatever laws are there, these were made by British. Though there have been some amendments here and there, but basic crux of those laws remain those which, when we were a slave, we were a country under some other country, when we were ruled by a foreign power, when we were a colony only. Those laws are still existing. But media laws have not changed much. Government will never ever allow a complete freedom to media. Now it's more evident. Now you hear every day new terms in journalism. Okay, this is Godi media. Godi media means what? As I said, media job is you are a watchdog, but not a lapdog. Lap means Godi. You have a lapdog. So you know the difference. The lapdog and the watchdog. You don't want any harm to come to your lapdog. You care. You look after your lapdog. But watchdog is the one who will look after you. He won't allow any enemies to come closer to you, anybody to harm you. So that's the difference now. The media has become gradually, and that's the feeling of the public. And it's becoming more and more of Godi media than of being a watchdog media. So we are becoming, journalists are becoming the present day journalists, I don't want to say all, but maybe a few of them, maybe substantial section has now become more, they have agreed to be following those conventions and practices which were earlier not acceptable, which were earlier people even won't even allow you to come closer to profession if you subscribe to those values of becoming spokesperson or mouthpieces of either political houses, business houses, or industrial houses. They say, no, you are not required. We want neat and clean and objective people who are free from all influences, who can write and do justice to their work, and they meet the aspirations of the people in a democracy. So democracy expects journalists to be their ears and eyes. So they want them to play a role to keep them alert of impending threats or dangers to democracy, but not become a chorus singer with the government. No, 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 everything is good, everybody is going very well. No, journalists are not meant for that. But I don't know what future journalism has, but I still feel, very strongly feel, the printed word is still got a lot of sanctity. It has a lot of acceptability. Ultimately, you see, print word will come back. It has to come back because you have so many things I have seen in my lifetime. They came and they vanished. But only things that have survived are those which are principle based, which have a purpose to serve society. They will never ever evaporate from this earth. So they have to stay because in the interest of humanity, in the interest of wellness of the humanity, certain values, certain systems have to be in place. So you cannot allow something which is like very fanciful initially, look very good, very attractive, but in the long run, they are very harmful. They take away the freedoms which you have over the years by struggle, by education, by awareness you have acquired. Those freedoms, those equalities, they have to stay. The governments uh, are people who are getting into government, they are getting into by choice. They say, we want to serve people, but they cannot be allowed to be dictators. But the systems these days, in a way, gradually, if you see the world over, those who are in power, they are becoming intolerant to criticism. They cannot take criticism. So the sense of tolerance is vanishing, and people are becoming so rude, so arrogant. They're blinded by power, and they are just eating into your freedoms, individuals' freedoms. So there is a limit, always a limit. Why I say the print word has still a lot of sanctity. Ultimately, when your tolerance ends, how long you can tolerate things just handed down to you and you are told to follow them. Whether you want willfully or you are not willing to accept them, but you have no choice. Ultimately, you will rebel. You will revolt against those practices. You say, no, I have my own freedom. I want to live the way I want to live. How somebody else can tell me I must learn only Hindi or I must follow this or I must do this? No, it's my choice. I want to do whatever I want to do within living within the gambit of the rule of the law, the rule of the land, law of the land. I have to follow that, respect that without hinging upon or invading somebody's privacy. If I'm living my own life, I have not to follow what the media is saying or what media wants us to follow. No, if media is wrong, we have to tell media, yes, here I don't accept your credibility. Your credibility is suspect. You are not giving me the honest opinion or honest news about happening around me. That's why media has lost. If media is now on the losing out because its credibility has suffered a jolt over the last 15 to 20 years. If the media had uh, not compromised on ethics, on values, on professionalism, it wouldn't have happened. They would have stayed on because you are, it's not only the print media or electronic media, all other forms of printed word, you are still accepting books. You are still accepting in the universities and colleges all the textbooks everywhere. Printed word is accepted everywhere. That why not journalism? You are still following, all people are in a way religious. They still follow the religious books. All Sikhs, they follow Guru Granth Sahib. Hindu people follow Gita. Muslims follow Quran. Christians follow Bible. They are all printed. They are not like on social media channels. They are all printed. They're sacred. They are kept, well kept. Similarly, now when the print media has lost or is continuing to lose more and more clientele, it doesn't mean it's end of it. It will stage a comeback. It will come back because this has stood the test of times. For thousands of years, printed media was the only media which was always acceptable. For example, I just tell you a very small example. Two friends meet and they're discussing something, and then they say, "Oh, knowledge is this is how knowledge is spelled." The other one says, "No, no, no. There is no K before knowledge." Why you say K? He says, "No, this is K." They argue. Then he produces a dictionary. He says, "See, this is knowledge." Once he sees the printed word in the dictionary, he says, "Yes, yes, you are right. I'm wrong." So that is a sanctity. Anything you do, and when you say, "Okay, this is a law, this is printed, this is C," then you have no choice but to accept. You go anywhere, they say, "Okay, this is the printed price on the product." You accept, okay, that's okay. Moment they say these are the instructions, you are to board an aircraft, you must follow this. This is clear instructions. Air hostess may tell you any damn thing, but moment she produces a document, then you have no choice but to accept it. So still in life, in practical life, printed word has a big sanctity. Ultimately, it will come back. It will come back. Journalism will stay because though social media, you see, human curiosity is always to know what is happening around him, especially in the area around you or the world over, or it's always curiosity to know what's happening here around you or different places. Inquisitiveness of human mind will never end. You will always want to know what is happening. Especially there are some areas where you become more inquisitive. For example, crime. Anywhere in the world, crime stories are the read most. Why? Then sports, then entertainment, or personal lives of people like those who are in the glamour world, entertainment world. People want to know each and everything about them, how they become so famous, why they are so famous, why people want selfies with them, why people want autograph with them. So that curiosity will never die. And to keep that curiosity alive, media will continue to play a role and is playing a role. So I don't know how social media versus conventional media, this confrontation will continue and where it will end up. But ultimately, since I'm a conventional journalist, I still have a very soft corner for those practices which we have been following for last 50 years. And I still feel conventional media did a good job in 50 years in keeping public informed objectively without any bias. And but I also agree that objectivity itself is very subjective. How you view objectivity is a different way. For me, something is very objective. For you, it may be very subjective. So that difference of opinion we have to take in our strides, but still overall framework, when we don't bring in ourselves, we tend to or we claim to remain objective.
ਇਹਦੇ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਬੜਾ ਵਧੀਆ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ that two journalists from different countries go to watch a space launch.
That's right.
ਉਹ ਦੱਸੋਗੇ ਜਰਾ?
Yeah, sure. So exactly, that's when you define objectivity. A journalist from the Western world and a journalist from the Eastern world, or like the erstwhile Soviet bloc, they have gone to cover a launch, a satellite launch, or a space launch to an event. And both are asked to report objectively the launch ceremony of a satellite into the space. So there's an American journalist and there is a Russian journalist. Both are journalists and both have been told, please keep your ideologies out of reporting and you report this event objectively. Fine. So both are there on the spot and the spacecraft is launched and American runs a story quickly. America made yet another stride in space research and science and by launching this. And the Russian journalist will say, America has made yet another attempt to colonize space. Colonize? They say science and research, and they say colonize. Both are reporting objectively. So what is the truth? Is American ship colonizing the space? Or is this a science advancement only? So the readers of both the stories, if you gave American readers the Russian story and the Russian readers the American story, both will be confused. What is this? How, like Americans will say, how we can colonize this thing, this is an acquisition. And they will say, no, Russian will say other way. But both have reported honestly because their grooming right from their childhood has been that way. For them, anything done by the Western world or the advanced world is towards capitalism, monopolization. And the Russian bloc will say everything is towards socialism, with sharing everything with everyone. So there are different orientations, different grooming, different color to the same event makes huge difference. Though technically or professionally speaking, both were told to report objectively. So that's how subjective is objectivity. Same event, two different colors.
ਇੱਥੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਛੋਟੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਆ ਐਂਡ ਵਿਲ ਬੀ ਰਾਈਟ ਬੈਕ ਸੋ ਵੀਰ ਬੈਕ ਐਂਡ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਆਬਜੈਕਟਿਵਿਟੀ ਐਂਡ ਸਬਜੈਕਟਿਵਿਟੀ ਇਨ ਜਰਨਲਿਜ਼ਮ ਹੁਣ ਇਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਇੱਕ ਟੌਪਿਕ ਜੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਛੇੜਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਦ ਫੈਕਟ ਦੈਟ ਯੂ ਨੋ ਐਜ਼ ਅ अर्ਲੀ ਇਨ ਯੋਰ ਕਰੀਅਰ and I want to actually get into the incentives of journalists back when you were young, when you started out versus journalists today, and how they get paid for the work that they do. So on ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਕੀ ਹੈਗਾ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਪਾਰਟ ਆਪਾਂ ਡਿਸਕਸ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਐਜ਼ ਅ ਸਟ੍ਰਿੰਗਰ ਜਦ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਕਰੀਅਰ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤਾ ਯੂ ਆਰ ਮੇਕਿੰਗ ਅਬਾਊਟ 2000 rupees a month, and when you became a staff journalist you started getting paid 1000, and even though when you went back to your editor in chief and you said ਤੁਸੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਮੈਂ 2000 ਬਣਾਉਂਦਾ ਸੀ ਹੁਣ ਤਾਂ ਮੈਂ 1000 ਬਣਾਉਂਦਾ, he was able to speak to you and somehow you left 1000 rupees a month on the table. You're like ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਹੁਣ ਮੈਂ ਘੱਟ ਕਮਾ ਰਿਹਾ. So I want to learn a little bit more about one, ਉਸ ਟਾਈਮ 2000 ਰੁਪਏ ਦੀ ਕੀ ਵੈਲਿਊ ਸੀਗੀ, ਤੇ two, what was it about what Prem Bhatia said that you were willing to make lesser money?
Yeah, you see, those days, 2000 was a lot of money. I still remember during those days, early my college days, when I was just in doing my MA English as well as working for the Tribune, I would come to Chandigarh on my friend's scooter with 10 rupees fuel. With 10 rupees, tanki would be full for coming and going back to Chandigarh. 10 rupees. I bought myself during those days petrol for 84 paise a liter or even less than that. So that was the value of money. And 25 paisa was a cup of tea, max. So those days, my monthly expenses, all paid and everything done, would be around 300 to 350 rupees. So getting 2000 rupees was a lot of money. And that's why I could buy every month books for about 100 rupees. Novels, books, other books. I was very fond of buying yearbooks. As I said, I would even subscribe to Hindu's Indian Cricket. It used to be 10 or 15 rupees every year. I would buy that. I would buy all sports magazines also. Even if I was writing for them, I would get only complimentary copies of some issues, not all. But I would never miss an issue. I will buy. I would buy some of the good magazines those times. I still had. And recently, you may be aware, I donated my huge collection of magazines from early 70s. So thousands of magazines I gave away to institutions which run journalism courses. So that was a huge collection from my early days. I could afford that only because I was making money from journalism. Plus, only this factor which weighed heavily on my mind and which helped me to decide when I went to Mr. Prem Bhatia, and I was very submissive in my meeting with him. I said, sir, I have lost money. And though I'm a staffer now, but I'm a loser. You should have given me at least a couple of increments to start with. So he laughed. He said, Prabhjot, sky is the limit for you. You are a bright star, and I have a great love for your work, the way you work, your dedication. So don't worry about money. It's not money, it's the satisfaction. And plus, now he used to say in Thet Punjabi, ਹੁਣ ਇੱਕੋ ਹੀ ਖਸਮ ਹੈ ਤੇਰਾ, ਅੱਗੇ ਤੂੰ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਆਇਆਂ ਲਈ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦਾ ਸੀ, ਹੁਣ ਤੂੰ ਸਿਰਫ ਟ੍ਰਿਬਿਊਨ ਲਈ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ, ਤੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਤੂੰ ਅਜੀਤ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਖਬਰ ਭੇਜਣੀ ਹੈ, ਹਿੰਦ ਸਮਾਚਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਭੇਜਣੀ ਹੈ, ਮਿਲਾਪ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਦੇਣੀ ਹੈ, ਸਪੋਰਟ ਸਟਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਦੇਣੀ ਹੈ, ਹੁਣ ਸਿਰਫ ਇੱਕੋ ਹੀ ਥਾਂ 'ਤੇ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨਾ. ਕਿੰਨੀ ਸੈਟਿਸਫੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ, ਤੇਰਾ ਫੋਕਸ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਵੱਧ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਯੂ ਆਰ ਵਰਕਿੰਗ ਓਨਲੀ one institution, and which promises, which is the biggest institution of this part of the world and which is unique institution. ਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਸਮਝ ਲੱਗੀ, ਮੈਂ ਜੀ ਯੂਨੀਕ ਤਾਂ ਠੀਕ ਆ, ਪਰ ਪੈਸੇ ਵੀ ਤਾਂ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਨੇ ਨਾ. ਹੀ ਸੈਡ ਯੈਸ, ਪੈਸੇ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਨੇ, ਪੈਸੇ ਤਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਕੋਲੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਪਰ ਇੱਜ਼ਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਪ੍ਰਭਜੋਤ. ਇੱਜ਼ਤ ਉਦੋਂ ਹੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਵੈਨ ਯੂ ਆਰ ਆਈਡੈਂਟੀਫਾਈਡ ਵਿਦ ਸਮਥਿੰਗ ਵਿਚ ਇਜ਼ ਆਲਸੋ ਵੈਰੀ ਰਿਸਪੈਕਟੇਬਲ. ਸੋ ਨਾਓ ਜਲੰਧਰ ਵਾਲੇ ਪੇਪਰਾਂ ਦਾ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਤੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੈਗੀ, ਹੁਣ ਤੂੰ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਦਾ ਆਦਮੀ ਬਣ ਗਿਆ, ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਨਿਊਜ਼ਪੇਪਰ ਦਾ ਵੱਡਾ ਰਿਪੋਰਟਰ ਬਣ ਗਿਆ. So I realized that, yes, because at that time also they used to say कि हिंदी पंजाबी पेपर ਤਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਪੈਸੇ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੰਦੇ, ਤਨਖਾਹ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੰਦੇ, ਉਹ ਤਾਂ rather exploit ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ journalists ਨੂੰ. They would even tell them to get advertisements for running the newspaper. He says, did everybody say anything to you to get some advertisement? I said, no, sir, I will not even touch asking, or even I won't even allow myself to get into that. I will never do that. That's not my job. I belong to editorial. Yeah, I said I will never get into that. I am basically a journalist. I am supposed to spend money to get news. I am not to earn money for my organization. You have other people, advertising people, full staff. They have to earn money. Circulation people. There are other ways to generate revenue, not me. We are spenders. He said, yes, this is what I wanted to hear from you. So you are in very safe boat, he told me. So that's one thing. I said, okay, I will not talk about it again. Money is not important to me, but professional satisfaction is yes. And this respect, yes, when you are identified with a big institution, it's a big incentive. And then he said, when you're working for the Tribune, you have so many things that come automatically to you. So I said, sir, not many things come to me automatically. He says, why you say that? He says, I told him jokingly, I said, whenever I say I am Prabhjot Singh from the Tribune, and the instant reaction is, are you from Punjabi Tribune? I would say, no, I'm writing for the Tribune, though I'm writing for Punjabi Tribune as well. But my mother organization is the Tribune, because at that time, no one believed a Sikh would be a journalist for the Tribune. So they would simply say, oh, Punjabi Tribune. Because at that time, we had started the Punjabi Tribune as well. The Tribune group had started the Punjabi and Hindi Tribune only during those years, 77, 78, 79. So he laughed. He says, yes, Prabhjot, you will see Punjabi Tribune will grow into a big, big newspaper. I said, yes, sir, we needed a quality newspaper in Punjabi as well. So, but I said, while I started working for the Tribune, I also started writing for Punjabi Tribune. He said, how come? I said, Mr. Barjinder Singh Hamdard, he is the editor now of Punjabi Tribune. Since he is the son of Sadhu Singh Hamdard, and he had seen me, though he left company of his father, and he started his own independent magazine from Jalandhar. He asked me to write for his magazine in Jalandhar. And now when he joined the Tribune, Punjabi Tribune editor, he keeps on sending me letters, ke Prabhjot, there is a Punjabi Tribune also, write for Punjabi Tribune also. So I started writing freelance contributions for Punjabi Tribune also. So I'm writing for them. He says, so you are enjoying it. So you are getting extra money. I said, as long as I was in the field, I was getting money. But now I'm a staffer. I won't get even paid by Punjabi Tribune, even if I write for them. He says, no, we will give you some compensation for that. And because then the Tribune introduced a system. If you write something extra, like we had a weekly column called Chandigarh Calling, or if you write for Sunday Magazine, or if you write for Punjabi exclusively or Hindi exclusively, so they will pay you at best in a month 200 rupees extra for contributing to these special features. So I said, okay, so that's a good idea, sir, that at least we'll get 200 rupees a month. So I used to get every month 200 rupees minimum, because I would write for Chandigarh Calling, even Sunday Reading, even other issues like in Dainik Tribune. Sometime I would write in Hindi also. And Punjabi, of course, I would write regularly. So that was an incentive at that time. So somehow I felt little compensated for not getting those much of payments as I was getting, because I was getting about 200 to 300 rupees from radio. Then even as a Tribune stringer, I was getting around 460 rupees a month as a stringer, and 100 rupees from Punjab Kesari, I still remember. 200 to 250 rupees a month from Sports Star, 150 rupees to 200 rupees a month from Sports Week, similarly from Sports World. And then Jalandhar other papers, Punjab Kesari, I have mentioned, then Akali Patrika, then Milap. So I would write for them and I was getting money from them. So overall, my budget, like my turnover every month would be across or little more than 2,000 rupees. So this is when I explained to him. So he said, yes, I know, but you are working so hard and so early in your career. I said, no, sir, I have to make my career in this profession, as no one in my family is ever thought of joining journalism. They don't know what journalism is all about. And when I took this decision, so everybody in the family was surprised. He said, now you got admission in MA Punjabi and suddenly you are changing. So I told them, no, this is one area which will have a lot of scope, a lot of potential. And the family said, no, no, why don't you join civil services? Everybody wanted me to join civil services. I said, no, I don't want. I've seen civil services is no good. So that's why I opted for journalism. And Tribune was when I got into Tribune. So ultimately, I thought I made a right decision. Ultimately, though it was a loss of money, but the way I would be received everywhere as a young Sikh journalist working for the Tribune, it was a great feeling, great satisfaction for me. And wherever I would go, and even in the Tribune, since I was one person who would never say no to an assignment. How difficult terrain it would be, I would immediately say, okay, I'm going. It's a major rail mishap in Haryana, I would go. Major mishap in Himachal, I would go. A bus has crashed into Bakhara Dam, I would go to Bakhara. Anywhere. So all 24 hours, I was always open to work. And then the Tribune gave me so much. Every other day I would be on page one. So me and Karam Singh, we were in competition. Who gets more page one stories? He would get pictures and I would get my stories. So we were always in a healthy competition. We were a team. We used to go together everywhere, cover almost all functions together. So sometime his photo would get on page one and they say, see story on page three. So I would get jealous. I said, Karam, you got on page one because of my story. So that was very healthy competition. So those were the days when we would look for stories which had capability of getting on page one, because then it would attract attention of everyone. And even bosses would notice those stories. Inside pages are, of course, they are well read, page three or sports page. But the romance of getting story on page one was so different. And especially a paper like the Tribune. So it would reach out hundreds of thousands of people every morning, even the hard copy. And people would know, okay, Prabhjot Singh is there, he's written this. Or some Karam Singh is taken this picture. So invariably, they would think Karam Singh is also a turbaned man like Prabhjot Singh. Or they would think Prabhjot Singh is also like a Himachali, clean-shaven Hindu whose name is Singh. So that's why I said when I would introduce myself, I'm Prabhjot Singh from the Tribune. There's a Punjabi Tribune. Seeing my turban. So I said, no, it is Singh, real Singh. So that was the romance of becoming a staffer. And afterwards, after my first meeting with Mr. Prem Bhatia over the wages and things like this, I never raised that issue again. So, but those days, and still, then working for a newspaper is not for people who value money, because journalism those days was not a paying profession. Number one. Number two, now every profession, wherever you work, you have some post-retirement benefits like pension. But in journalism, for example, in Tribune, after 37 years I worked, I have no pension. So whatever money I contributed to my provident fund, a portion of it was taken away and put as now I get, after say 40 years of service, I get 2,000 rupees as a compensation or a pension, which is my own money, which was taken away from my provident fund and being given to me now. So that's one setback. So, and one beauty of journalism during our time when we joined was our wages used to be by an act of parliament. So journalist wages would be decided a wage board report, which would come every 10 years. So the wage board would give recommendations on the basis of the revenue, the circulation, and other things. They would come on. If your total turnover of newspaper is 5 crores, you are in category 1. If it's more than 20 crores, you are in category 1A. And accordingly, if your circulation is this much, you are in this category. So accordingly, your wages would be fixed. So if you belong to a bigger newspaper whose turnover is very large, so you are into a better package. Your pay scales are in better. Like starting is 1,500 rupees at that time, and newspapers, lower category, it would be 500 rupees starting scale, and upper category like 1A or 1B, it will be 1,500, 2,000 rupees as starting scale, basic, and total would be around 10,000 because basic, then DA, then house rent, then conveyance allowance, everything put together, you would carry home about 15,000, 12, 20,000. And with 500 basic, you would be carrying about 1,200, 1,500 rupees a month. So that salary was fixed by wage board. And it was mandatory for newspapers to follow and implement those wage board recommendations. But then gradually, managements are very clever. They wanted to move out of this wage board control. So they started encouraging people, okay, we will employ you on contract. So you will not be governed by wage board. And some newspaper employees unions, they oppose it. But since newspapers, they belong to, most of the newspapers belong to monopoly houses, big industrial houses. So they managed, they somehow persuaded the government and convinced the government and even the labor course, Department of Labor, which controls media industry. And gradually, the wage board now, the number of newspapers who are under wage board has come down tremendously. Not even 30% of newspapers are following wage board recommendations. 70% are already on contract now, employees. So they can be hired and fired. They can be, but wage board was sense of security in job. A lot of security was there, and it was very difficult for a management to throw out an employee on one pretext or the other. But now the system has, though they offered little more salary to people joining on contract than the regular wages. Suppose as a journalist on regular wages, I was getting, say, for example, as a bureau chief, 1 lakh of rupees a month. They would offer 1.5 or 2 lakhs of rupees to a similar position man, a bureau chief, on contract basis. Because then the liability of the paper is only for paying him the money agreed upon. But here, in case of regular employees, they would have to reimburse me my medical bills, my other bills, some sort of perks which are associated with the professional work. But then contract employees also started demanding this. So managements, they wanted that this liability should go, the permanent wage board. We will pay you even more, but you come on contract. Even they offered to regular employees, you come on contract, we'll pay you more than what you are getting. But contract will be limited for 3 years. It depends upon you and us whether the contract is to be renewed or not. So your performance and the willingness of the management, they have to be in unison. Only then the contract will be renewed. If the management doesn't like you, even if you are working well, and it doesn't approve of your work, you will not get your contract renewed. But on the wage board, it is almost impossible for a management to throw out an employee out of job. So what they normally do is they'll post you out to far off place, very far off place where there is no circulation, your paper is not known. So if you're working for the Tribune and you're posted to Guwahati in Assam, nobody knows the Tribune there. So what choice you will have? Ultimately, you will quit. You will tell the paper, okay, give me whatever package you want to give me, I'll quit. So this is how they would get rid of regular employees. But that was very rarely used. This weapon was rarely used. Normally, they would say, okay, give him inconsequential posting where there's no work, let him sit crib, and we'll give him wages every month. But don't. The importance of a journalist is only when he goes to the field and he writes. If he is sitting in office, nobody knows him. So they would do that. Management would do that. They will give him no work, or they post him far off place. So that's what they used to do with the regular employees. But with contract, they won't renew the contract. So simply the man goes out. But now this has come as a trend. Contractual employment in journalism is also almost everywhere. But some old cases, like in the Tribune, about the 1,300 employees, now about 300 employees are left who are regular wages. The rest 1,000 are contract. So another 2 years, 3 years, when they attain the age of 60, they will also retire, and then that class, that group of wage board employees will end. Similarly, other newspapers are also now, the last few badges are left. So another 10 years, 5 years, 10 years, so there'll be no wages so who are governed by wage boards. And even now, for the last so many years, no new wage board has been set up also. Ministry of Labor has not set up any new wage board after last wage board. So that is one area which is dissuading people. There is no sense of security in job in journalism now as it was. Because when I joined the Tribune, it used to be said at that time, it's very difficult to get into the Tribune and more difficult to get out of the Tribune. You retire. And that's why the Tribune had a very, very strong family culture. After, there was an incentive in the Tribune. If I joined the Tribune, I had an option to get one of my kins, my son, my daughter, or anybody close, my brother relative, employed in the Tribune. One employee can get one kin in the Tribune. That's why in Tribune, traditions, families continued for years together. And there are lots of people whose fathers, grandfathers, they worked for the Tribune and now they are working. But now that is no more there after this thing, this clause came. So that sense of belongingness, which was initially in some professions, in other newspapers also, in Hindu also, is gone now. And now they take people only for certain period or for a certain project or for a certain assignment. And then they say, okay, thank you very much, goodbye. But Tribune used to be different. And I hope that culture is revived and Tribune still stays as a family paper.
I think we'll end today's podcast because I think we're already almost hitting the 3-hour mark today. We're going to end on when you start, and this is something that you were talking about. Tusi dassya siga ki bhai, as you had started your career at that time, newspapers and media was stifled because there was a fascist leader who was trying to be a dictator and control what media could say. And I would say the world has come a full circle, and आज दी डेट भी कुछ ऐदा दी चीज़ां ही हो रही हैं. But before you answer that, थोड़ी सी चाय पियो अपनी.
Yes, I need it.
हाँ पहले चाय पी लो. Just take a minute and enjoy your tea.
Yeah, it's welcome.
Yeah.
He is welcome.
ਮਜ਼ਾ ਆ ਗਿਆ. ਇਹ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਆਪਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਲੰਚ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ.
Yeah.
ਮਜ਼ਾ ਆ ਗਿਆ. It's like today was actually a good day to record a podcast also.
Yeah, free day and weather is good.
Weather is also very nice. Although ਅਸੀਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਤਾਂ ਗਏ ਨਹੀਂ.
But I think it's raining a little bit.
ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ. I think ਲੱਗ ਗਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ. Cloudy ਤਾਂ ਲੱਗ ਰਿਹਾ but it didn't rain. But yeah, it's a good day to record a podcast. Plus
Yeah.
ਕਾਫੀ ਵੱਡਾ ਗਰਾਊਂਡ ਕਵਰ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ and I think we've covered some interesting topics. ਹੁਣ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਜਦ ਮੈਂ ਐਡਿਟ ਕਰਾਂਗਾ, ਲਿਸਨ ਕਰਾਂਗਾ ਨਾ,
ਫਿਰ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ clear ਹੋਏਗਾ.
plus we'll come up with like very specific topics as follow-up episodes.
Yeah, that's right.
ਹਾਂ ਮਜ਼ਾ ਆ ਗਿਆ. ਇਹ ਸੀਗਾ ਟੈਸਟ ਮੈਚ ਦਾ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਮੈਚ ਸੀਗਾ.
First test series ਦਾ.
ਸੀਰੀਜ਼ ਦਾ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਟੈਸਟ ਮੈਚ ਸੀਗਾ. ਐਗਜ਼ੈਕਟਲੀ. ਯਾ. ਤੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਚ ਕੀ ਹੈਗਾ?
ਇਹ ਮੈਂ ਕੋਲ ਲਿਆ ਸੀ ਪੁਰਾਣੇ ਅਖਬਾਰ ਪੂਰੇ ਪੇਜ. I have like so many firsts in the Tribune. I am the only journalist who had maximum page one stories in the Tribune, in the history of the Tribune. Maximum full page stories in Sunday reading and other editions. Maximum number of middles, musings, so satires.
Because ਤੁਸੀਂ prolific ਹੀ ਬੜੇ ਸੀਗੇ. You used to write also a lot.
Yeah.
It's not that they just posted you on first.
And I am the only journalist in India who is basically a sports journalist, but who covered politics, administration, governance, environment, education, health, business, aviation, tourism. And that too, not defense, not like one or two stories, regular.
Yeah. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਤਸੱਲੀ ਨਾਲ, ਸ਼ੌਕ ਨਾਲ.
ਕੋਈ ਬੰਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ ਬਿਊਰੋ ਚੀਫ ਬਣਿਆ ਹੋਵੇ, ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਦਾ ਬੰਦਾ ਹੋਵੇ, ਡੈਪਟੀ ਐਡੀਟਰ ਬਣਿਆ ਹੋਵੇ, ਹੈਡ ਆਫ ਨਿਊਜ਼ ਬਣਿਆ ਹੋਵੇ, ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਵਾਲਾ ਬੰਦਾ, ਬਾਕੀ ਸਾਰੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਨੂੰ.
I think it's interesting ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕਰੀਅਰ ਵਿੱਚ that
ਫਿਰ ਮੇਰੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਕੇਸ, ਇੰਦਰਾ ਗਾਂਧੀ, ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡੇ ਕੇਸ ਟ੍ਰਿਬਿਊਨ ਦੀ ਹਿਸਟਰੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੋਏ, ਟ੍ਰਿਬਿਊਨ ਦੇ ਟਾਈਮ 'ਚ, ਮੇਰੇ ਟਾਈਮ 'ਚ ਹੋਏ ਆ. ਪੰਜਾਬ 'ਚ ਟੈਰਰਿਜ਼ਮ, ਇੰਦਰਾ ਗਾਂਧੀ ਦੀ ਅਸੈਸੀਨੇਸ਼ਨ, ਸਿੱਖ ਰਾਈਟਸ, ਬੇਅੰਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੀ ਅਸੈਸੀਨੇਸ਼ਨ, ਹੋਰ ਬੰਦਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਟਰਾਂਸਪੋਰਟ ਐਕਸਪੋਜ਼ਰ, ਪੋਲੀਟੀਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮੈਂ ਕੀਤੇ, ਟਰਾਂਸਪੋਰਟ ਬਾਦਲਾਂ ਦਾ ਕੀਤਾ, ਰੇਲਵੇ ਦੇ ਕੀਤੇ, ਹਿਊਮਨ ਸਮਗਲਿੰਗ ਕੀਤੀ, ਡਰੱਗਸ ਦੇ ਕੇਸ ਮੈਂ ਕੀਤੇ. ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਇੰਟਰਸਟ ਜਿੰਨੀਆਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਰਿਪੋਰਟ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ. ਔਰ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਅਵਾਰਡ ਟ੍ਰਿਬਿਊਨ ਦੀ ਹਿਸਟਰੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਜਰਨਲਿਸਟ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਤਾਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਿਆ. ਫੈਲੋਸ਼ਿਪਸ ਮਿਲੀਆਂ, ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮਿਲੀਆਂ. ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਟਰੈਵਲ ਕੀਤਾ ਟ੍ਰਿਬਿਊਨ ਦੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਜਰਨਲਿਸਟ ਨੇ ਮੈਂ ਕੀਤਾ.
Yeah, I think in the following, one of the following test matches, we should cover just the special stories in some of the consecutive.
Yeah.
ਹੋਰ ਘੁਮਾ ਲਓ ਨੂੰ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਵੱਲ, ਮੂੰਹ ਵੱਲ ਘੁਮਾਓ. ਹਾਂਜੀ ਬਸ. I think in the coming episodes we'll do one episode dedicated on just the special investigative stories that you did.
Yeah.
ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਉਹ ਬਾਦਲ ਦੀ ਹੋਗੀ ਜਾਂ ਇੰਦਰਾ ਗਾਂਧੀ ਦੀ assassination ਹੋਗੀ, ਉਹ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ. We should do that in the coming episode. But I think
even ਜੇ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਦਾ ਰੋਲ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਬੜਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ, ਇਹ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਨੇ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਟੈਰਰਿਜ਼ਮ ਕੰਟਰੋਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ, ਬਲੈਕ ਕੈਟਸ ਕੌਣ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ, ਪੁਲਿਸ ਆਪ ਟੈਰਰਿਜ਼ਮ ਕਰਦੀ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੀ ਸੀ, ਮੈਂ ਆਰਟੀਕਲ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਕਰਦੀ ਸੀ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਟੈਰਰਿਜ਼ਮ, ਫੁੱਲ ਪੇਜ. ਉਹ
ਤਾਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਵੀ US ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਚਲੋ I think we'll move some of these topics for consecutive because otherwise we'll go very deep because CIA does a lot of terrorism.
Exactly. ਸਾਰੇ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਏਜੰਸੀਆਂ.
ਸਾਰੀ ਏਜੰਸੀਜ਼ ਕਰਦੀਆਂ. So anyway, so I think we want to come back to the topic of ki as you had started your career, there was a fascist government which was basically, that the government controls the narrative. And that's kind of what's also happening today. So the world has come full circle. So ਉਸ time ਤੇ ਜਦ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀਗਾ, what was journalism like? What was being printed? What was allowed? What was not allowed? What was it like being in that stifled environment?
You see, that's a very, very good question. When I started 75, there was emergency in the country. So I was wondering whether is it the right or opportune time to for me to join journalism. I don't know for how long this will continue, how long media will continue to be gagged. But I thought still there has to be some opposition, and as a true journalist, we have to fight for the right of freedom of expression, because this is a right which is enshrined in our constitution. So this is one of the freedoms which is very, very important to human dignity. Everybody wants to like be, at least you can speak out, you can express yourself at home, in public, in school, in college, in marketplace, everywhere. If your opinion or your voice is gagged, then you are nothing but an animal who is told, commanded, follow this, go this. So that's not what it is to be in a democracy. So when we started, but though emergency ended in 77 and before I became a staffer, and but then the events in Punjab were such that this control on media continued for a while. I still remember in 84 when you were born. You remember I have told you the story. I had gone to Ludhiana and your mom was expecting you on 30. You came on 31st of May. And when I came back to Chandigarh after your birth, so there was a deputy commissioner of Chandigarh, Mr. Prabhjot Singh. He says, "Haan, Prabhjot, what is the good news?" So I told him, "Sir, I'm blessed with a son." "Oh, so curfew Singh has come." I said, "Why you say that?" He says, "I have been looking for you. I am to tell you from tomorrow there'll be curfew in the city because army is already gone in Amritsar and so Chandigarh will also be under curfew. So your son has brought curfew with him." So he's always, whenever he talks about you, he'll always ask you, "How is curfew Singh?" So then curfew started. And for so many days, army was deployed in Punjab after Operation Blue Star, June 84. So I said, after 77, now again we have even 82 Asian Games. Before Asian Games, there were restrictions started and incidents were getting highlighted in media, like governments were taking actions against Sikhs in general and suspecting them to be supporters of Bindramali's agitation and things like this, harassment, suspicion, everything like as it could happen, and all those worst things which you never anticipated in independent and a democracy which were happening. But anyway, so after Operation Blue Star, there was curfew for some days, and then 6 months later, when Indira Gandhi was assassinated, then was again curfew. And also with curfew came the censorship. That was the first time I, in my lifetime, experienced censorship. The day Indira Gandhi was assassinated, 31st October 1984, we had a meeting at Mr. Bhatia's place in the morning. So he wanted us to fan out in the city and look for stories. And then I went to Maloya, the village of Byan Singh, the main principal assassin of Indira Gandhi. So in the evening, when we were back in office with our stories and everything, we brought out a one-page pull-out that day, special edition, announcing the assassination of Indira Gandhi. One side was English and on the back side was Punjabi and Hindi. So in the evening when we were back in office, Government of India announced, Punjab government, Chandigarh administration announced censorship. Okay, no news story carrying anything in about arson, violence will be allowed to be published. So they, because violence had erupted in Delhi, so they thought there'll be reaction in Punjab. So they wanted to control Punjab so that Sikhs were majority in Punjab. Otherwise, they were targeted elsewhere in India, Delhi, Kanpur, other places. They were attacked. But they wanted at least Sikhs in Punjab should not get into violent mode. So they put censorship and also curfew was there. So when Mr. Bhatia came to newsroom in the evening, I still remember. So he asked our news editor at that time, Mr. J.N. Bhamru. He says, Mr. Bhamru, how is progress? He said, sir, I can't bring out the audition. He said, what? What happened? So he said, sir, they are censors and they are uh, not allowing any story. They're not clearing any story. Even the statement Rajiv Gandhi made in an address to the nation after taking over as prime minister, they have censored the entire story. Wherever he spoke of arson or violence, they have cut those lines. So what should I do? That's my lead story. I have no lead story. He says, who is doing that? He says, these are the guys, 4-5 guys from Press Information Bureau, Field Publicity, and some government college lecturers and public relation people, they are here. He said, okay, let me talk to the chief commissioner. So from the newsroom, we dialed the number of Chief Commissioner, Mr. K. Banerjee, and he came on the line and said, yes, Mr. Bhatia, how come you? He says, you want me to shut down the Tribune? He said, no, Mr. Bhatia, what are you talking? Tribune is such a respectable paper. He said, no, your people, they are not clearing any item. They have even censored the Prime Minister's address to the nation. They say this contains these words. So what should I do? What should I put in place of that story? He said, no, that they can't censor Prime Minister's address to the nation. He said, this is what they have done. So he said, let me talk to them. He talked to them and he said, told them, behave properly, and or you can censor Prime Minister's statement. So Mr. Bhatia was very particular. He says, whichever story they censor, we leave that space blank. Whether it's on page 1, page 3, back page, wherever the story is going, and if they censor it, say censored and leave that space blank. So we started that. And that was another phase when the government came so heavily on media. And since Punjab was a turbulent state, Punjab was facing terrorism, and that violence continued till 93. So the government control throughout from 1979 till 93, especially 84 onwards, was so much the government would dictate, don't carry this story, don't carry this story, and violence, the terrorist violence story would come from agencies. You have to take only from agencies, not from your own correspondents. So there are lots of things were said, and some managements followed them, some managements defied them. So Tribune towed the middle line. We used our professional discretion. So whatever we thought is in public interest and is not provocative, not provoking people, so we would use those stories even if the government didn't want it. Like, for example, some statements made by terrorist organizations or militants, we would carry them. And sometime even the militants would force us to carry the full statements. And one day we carried a full page. I was away attending a war correspondent course, and in my absence, what happened was they came with a full page statement, and it was carried. And everybody was shocked. How come Tribune has come to their pressure tactics? But then the argument given by, because on that day there was an officiating editor, main editor was not there. So argument was that everybody has the right to give their point of view. So even every day we carry government's view, if one day they wanted their viewpoint to be published, though under threat, we published it. But then how we can put the safety of entire staff to threat, how we can endanger them. So maybe once in a while it happens, and it has happened. We carried. But so for that period was not only governments, but extra constitutional forces, militant organizations also, they would at time they were threatening us, and we were bending, rather crawling to their demands and publishing their versions. Though what government was saying was also not true. It was more of a propaganda. So that's why when after this turbulence was over, Mr. V.N. Narayanan wrote a book, Trust with Terrorism. He mentioned whatever newspapers published between 1979 and 93, it was not professionally done work. It was not news, but it was more of a propaganda, either of the government or of the militants. So nobody can find out the reality by reading those reports, what was actually happening in Punjab. So it was either this way, colored this way, or it was colored other way. So that was a phase where journalists, when they were asked to bend, they crawled. And though some journalists, they were very they lived to the values of the profession, and they didn't compromise, and they were ready to face threats. They were even threatened, and they faced police cases. They faced cases from the government and also threats from the terrorists, but they followed a professional line. So that's why some journalists, they were like, those days, they were on the hit list of both terrorists and the government. But because of their professional uprightness, they survived. So that's a time when the Tribune also had only few journalists who stood by professional ethics and carried out whatever was professionally required of them. And some were even absent, and they were not present because they were under threat. But then there were other was working around the clock under threat, and they never knew whether they would return home the same evening after finishing their job during the day. So the government is never, never so like generous to allow you to work professionally. So governments always, whichever government is there, will always try to gag and pressurize media. And now it's much more. It's much more open. And it was, though those were very trying circumstances, but government pressure was not visible those days. Some media would stand up and say, no, this is wrong. We won't do this. But now I think the media, most of the media, as I said, Godi media, is not bending but crawling. That's why credibility has come low, and people have stopped believing, or they're just moving away from traditional and conventional media. They're saying whatever they are saying is more of a propaganda than projecting or giving us the reality or the correct news. So that was a phase where, like, from 75 till 93 was a very, very difficult phase, especially for journalism in Punjab and North, Chandigarh, Punjab, and Haryana. Rest of India was fairly okay, but Punjab was always under different laws. Governments were trying to stifle media, militants were trying to stifle media, and others are also like some people then on the lines of religion. So they were identifying journalists with religion, their ethnicity, their background, and they would view other journalists from other community with suspicion. So that was a very bad phase. But thank God it's over. And journalism was back on its reels. But those journalists who were true professional journalists, they survived, and they never feared anything because they know everybody has to go. But if you live professionally, you will be remembered for your work. So that's what made the distinction.
And like that was till 1993, and today is 2023. So in 30 years,
Yeah.
It's kind of feels full circle, because the government and these big corporate organizations, they try to control social media, and they have been caught. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਫੜ ਲਿਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ, ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਹੁਣ ਟਵਿੱਟਰ ਦਾ ਚੱਕਰ ਪਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਬਈ FBI was controlling कि भी हुन vaccines ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਪੰਗੇ ਹੋਏ ਸੀਗੇ.
Yeah.
So I think we should definitely in a follow-up episode go into deeper into some of these subjects. But I think we've covered a really good ground today.
Yeah.
We had a really good conversation. We
That's
got
right.
into some of your background. We learned about some of the early days, how you actually got into journalism itself, and then what early days in journalism were like.
Yeah.
And how at the onset of your career, media was stifled, but you still pushed through that.
Yeah.
And how media has evolved over time, and then what how incentives were sort of different in those days versus today for a journalist. And so before we end today's episode, are there any final words you want to say just to kind of close today's?
Yeah, you see, in those days, there were no incentives. Incentives were very, very minuscule. For example, I remember me and my spouse Rita, my mentor and my guide, and Mr. Samuel Banerjee, we went to cover Asian Games. And other newspapers in India all sent 5 members, 6 members, senior journalists, sports journalists, everybody. We were only 2. We covered it. And all newspapers, they offered those journalists who went to cover Asian Games suit lengths, cash prizes, and other things. But the Tribune didn't give us anything. We used to live in a room which was a part of the office. We would sleep on the table and use office, saved money on hotel and everything. And ultimately, when nothing was like the only appreciation, they said, very well done, good job, very well done, but no incentives of such a hard work. And especially when those initial restrictions, Bhajanlal government and checking and pressure of initial stages of Sikh terrorism and nothing. And Samuel Banerjee wrote a very emotional note. He said, every newspaper has done this, but Tribune has done nothing. So I, in future, will not go out to report any event. And he did not go out to report. He said, this is not a done thing. So those days, incentives, there were hardly any incentives. Now, every management wants to please a journalist. They want to promote and use him. They'll give him incentives, promotions out of it. But in those days, in my career, I always feel I always did a good job. I was used to work 14 hours a day. I would never take an off day. I would never. But there were no incentives except I got my promotions in time. And when it came to the competition to appoint a bureau chief, since I was far more experienced and far more qualified, I was made bureau chief. I was the youngest to become a bureau chief of the Tribune. But that was because of my thing. No, it was not offered to me. It was through a competition. Everybody applied. So ultimately, they held an interview. They went through the papers, qualifications, and everybody knew me in the Tribune. And even some internal candidates, some outside candidates, all were there. So those days, incentives were very limited, or they were given only to people who were like very close to the management. Not everybody. Like as I said, we covered Asian Games so well, and we had maximum stories in the record official report books. But we broke maximum number of stories on Asian Games, like what's happening. For example, when the chief coach Balbir Singh had a fight with Indian Hockey Federation president on the ground, they were almost came to blows. We carried a picture and story which was exclusive for us. Yog Jai, our chief photographer, he's no more. He took that picture and I was there on the ground and we carried that story. But so many such stories, equipment, delays, preparations, wet paint around, all those stories we carried. And they were greatly appreciated by readers, by associations, by organizers, everybody. But the Tribune only said, well done. No incentives. So those were the days we were still happy, still like, though Sam was very upset, he said, not for me, at least Prabhjot, for you. You did so much of work in Asian Games. At least they should have recognized your work. I said, no, sir, you did. I worked under you. So, but incentives are very far and few. But now, every time you are get out of a promotion, you are become this, you become this, and you are on contract. People, they go up quickly. And but Tribune was like a government organization where you will go with seniority, years you have put in, and then not work, but years you have put in only on basis of seniority. So that was one thing which I thought was lacking during my times in the Tribune also. So incentive part was either not there, or if it was there, it was only for very, very few people, not everybody.
Actually, that's a good point. Key monetary benefit incentives kuch nahi sige, but the incentive was more qualitative, not quantitative.
Yeah.
Qualitative in key, the satisfaction of being part of this prestigious organization, Tribune.
Yeah.
That the stories were well done and they were read, and it was the most distributed. So there were incentives were different.
Different, yeah.
But monetary wise,
no incentive.
Like for example, you also mentioned ki unhone pension. In fact, the pension that you get is the first salary that you got.
Yeah.
Lesser than the first salary that you got.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
interesting.
And 2,000 rupees these days, what you can do with 2,000 rupees?
Nothing. That's like what, 10? That's not even $10. That's like, no, that's
not even
$20.
one good family dinner. You can't buy a good family dinner.
Yeah.
For the money.
That's pretty bad actually.
Yeah.
चलो ਆਪਾਂ ट्रिब्यून ਦੀ ਮੁੜ ਕੇ ਫਿਰ ਅਗਲੇ ਐਪੀਸੋਡ ਹੋਰ ਛਿਲ ਆਵਾਂਗੇ.
Yeah, but Tribune is still a great organization. I got a copy of the will of the founder, Dayal Singh Majithia. His intentions were like great intentions. He started this newspaper against, at that time, the British Empire. So he wanted freedom. So he supported freedom, and he was anti-British. So that institutions he started, he was a great man. He was the one who started Punjab National Bank. He started Dayal Singh College. He started Dayal Singh Library. So whatever he did it for public welfare. And all his fortune were transferred ultimately to all the trusts. Even now, Dayal Singh College is there in Karnal. Dayal Singh Library in Delhi. So there is still government Dayal Singh College in Lahore, and Dayal Singh Library in Lahore, and Dayal Singh Mansion in Lahore, still there. And the Tribune, of course, is there. So his legacy lives on. And he never made any member of his family a trustee in his institutions, education institutions, either college or library or anywhere, or the Tribune, nowhere. And when he made his final will, if you read that will, it is such a interesting reading. He fixed wages for his wife. After he's gone, she must not be paid more than 100 rupees a month. She will be given only food and agriculture produce. She will be given the chance to use the horse-driven cart to go to city twice a month or 3 times a month, thing like this. So very minimal, but keeping in view the status of the lady. So certain benefits he allowed, but only limited. Not that she would use money lavishly, whatever Dayal Singh's fortune was. So he mentioned in will, in writing, she will be given this, she'll be given one attendant, she will be given this, he'll be given this. So that was the guy. And incidentally, though he was originally a Sikh guy, but he intended to be a Brahma Samaji, though he never became a Brahma Samaji, though it was said he was a Brahma Samaji, but he never made or nominated a Sikh to any of his trusts. Mostly he chose people from Bengal, which he thought were intellectuals or scholars or very eminent Hindu leaders of that time as trustees of college or library or other things. So he was not like somebody who would only support Sikhs or Sikhism. No, not at all. He was not parochial, not at all. So he was very open-minded, broad-minded, and always thought of future. Institutions he built, all institutions, even Tribune started after his death. But he paved way. He made institutions. Such a huge contribution he made in the freedom struggle, for a future India, independent India. He could visualize this is how it's going to be. So his great contribution. Yeah.
Wow. I think that's a good spot to end today's podcast.
Yeah. Thank you. It's nice. Yeah, recalling those days and great times. Great times.
Yeah. Chalo ji. ਹੁਣ ਕੁਝ ਖਾਈਏ ਭੁੱਖ ਲੱਗੀ ਹੈ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ
Yeah.